Chapter 584. Even though winter was approaching, Miami City did not look like it was late autumn at all. However, there was no sign of late autumn in Miami City, Japan. The roadside was filled with all kinds of flowers that competed with each other, giving off a feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze. Yi-chun followed his memory and walked to Omakiyama Mountain with Chiba Yoshiko. He visited many places of interest along the way. For example, Kiyomizu Temple, Nuzan Historical Forest Park, Takata Nizayama Park, Shinkai Hot Spring, Tajiri City Ruins, Jiangpu Fishing Port, and so on. It gave him a deeper understanding of Japan. Along the way, Chiba Yoshiko seemed a little distracted. "Master, are we really going to Omakiyama Mountain? Why? You don't believe in my ability?" Yi-chun smiled lightly when he saw that she was hesitating to speak. How could he not know what she was thinking? And no. Chiba Yoshiko hurriedly shook her head and explained, "Master is like a god in my heart. But we're going to the Hitamoto clan's base this time. Not to mention the fact that we're outnumbered, just the Hitamoto clan's master and that god, the 4 Yin-Yang master clans had accumulated power in Japan for a long time. Even though she was born in the Chiba family, she had grown up hearing about the power of the Hitamoto clan. Now that Yi-chun and she were going to break into the Hitamoto clan's base on their own, how could she not feel scared? Yi-chun shook his head lightly and said, "Go back if you're afraid. We're not far from Omakiyama Mountain anyway." The night demon's whereabouts were still unknown. The only way to break through was the Hitamoto clan. Even if the Hitamoto clan was really that powerful, it could not stop his determination to find his old partner. Moreover, as the heavenly emperor of the immortal world, why would he be afraid of a small force in the mortal world? And no need. Chiba Yoshiko gritted her teeth and refused. She also knew that from the moment Hitamoto Jiro died, she and Yi-chun were on the same boat. No matter if she went or not today, she would be the Hitamoto clan's enemy. Yi-chun's victory or defeat would determine her life and death. Just when she was about to say something, Yi-chun suddenly pulled her behind him. Subsequently, he lifted his head and looked at the forest next to him. "Come out. What's the point of hiding? There's someone?" Chiba Yoshiko's breath caught in her throat. At the next moment, a black shadow suddenly leaped out from the forest. It was extremely fast and charged at Yi-chun like lightning. "You overestimate yourself." Yi-chun scoffed and stretched his arm out to grab the shadow. Chiba Yoshiko heard a cat's meow. It was extremely shrill, causing goosebumps to rise all over her body. When he took a closer look, he realized that Yi-chun was holding an enormous black cat in his hand. The black cat's fur was flawless. However, all of it was standing up at that moment. It bared its teeth at Yi-chun and roared. Its eyes flickered with a crimson color. This is the imperial cat of the Hitamoto clan." In that instant, Chiba Yoshiko seemed to have thought of something, and deep shock flashed across her face. Rumor had it that there was a black cat in the Hitamoto clan that was raised by the mysterious family head of the Hitamoto clan, Hitamoto Chiho. This black cat did not eat cat food and only ate the hearts and flesh of humans. What was even more shocking was that if an ordinary person looked into its eyes, they would lose their soul. Meow. Ow! At that moment, a strange scarlet flashed across the black cat's eyes. It broke its tail and landed on the ground. It turned into a black shadow and fled into the forest. "Master, don't let it get away. It's Hitamoto Chiho's pet," Chiba Yoshiko hurriedly reminded. "Evil creature, where do you think you're going?" At that moment, Yi-chun turned his palm into a claw and grabbed at the black cat that had leaped more than 10 meters away. An invisible force spread from his hand and turned into a giant hand that grabbed at the black cat. The black cat could not resist at all and was grabbed by him. Chiba Yoshiko was overjoyed. Just when she was about to say something, she realized that the black cat exploded with a bang and turned into countless wisps of black energy that dissipated. At the same time, a golden chrysanthemum fell to the ground. Chiba Yoshiko walked over by instinct. What's this? Don't touch it! Yi Chen shouted immediately. Before he could finish, Chiba Yoshiko had already picked up the golden chrysanthemum on the ground. She paused slightly at first. Subsequently, she turned around and revealed an evil smile at Yi Chen. Chinese man from afar, I can't believe you managed to subdue my Chi-Chi. Unfortunately, I'm still more skilled. If one took a closer look, they would realize that Chiba Yoshiko's eyes were filled with scarlet at that moment. At the same time, in the shrine dozens of kilometers away, more than 10 mirrors were erected in every corner of the room. More than 10 mirrors were erected in every corner of the room. More than 10 rays of light shone from the mirrors, and all the rays of light converged in the middle. At the point of convergence, a thin young man with slightly ordinary facial features appeared. A woman in a black dress had a bunch of golden chrysanthemums in her mouth, as she looked at the figure before her with a strange expression. The trap had been set the moment the black cat appeared. The black cat was both testing and trapping her. Her target was Yi Chen, but she did not expect Chiba Yoshiko to touch the chrysanthemum. Sensing the change in Chiba Yoshiko, Yi Chen frowned slightly and said, If I'm not mistaken, you're the head of the Hitamoto clan, Hitamoto Chiho, am I right? You killed my disciple first, and then you destroyed the Chiba family. Chiba Yoshiko stared straight at Yi Chen and said while chuckling, I was going to look for you, but I didn't expect you to come to me. I'm going to dig your heart out and feed it to my Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi loves Chinese people's meat the most. How dare you kill a Chinese to raise a demonic pet? Sensing the meaning behind her words, Yi Chen's expression turned cold. Then I can't let you live. Let's settle the old and new grudges together. Kill me? Chiba Yoshiko licked her lips. Her tongue was extremely red. I'm possessing this girl now. What a beautiful body, and she's still a virgin. Can you bear to destroy her? I'll destroy your soul within 7 steps. Then, I'll kill my way into the Hitamoto clan and destroy your real body. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold as he charged at her at high speed. Perfect timing. Chiba Yoshiko smirked coldly and took the initiative to charge at Yi Chen. At the same time, she extended 2 hands that were emitting black energy and stabbed them at Yi Chen's heart. Her nails grew in the wind as if she wanted to pierce through Yi Chen's chest. Yi Chen, on the other hand, did not panic at all. He pointed his finger between her brows and shouted, Get out! The space between the brows was also called the glabella. In Taoist terms, the glabella was also called the life palace. It was the place where a person's essence, energy, and primordial spirit gathered. It was also the place where a person's 3 souls and 7 spirits gathered. The reason why Hitamoto Chiho was able to possess Chiba Yoshiko's body was because she had forcefully entered her glabella and suppressed Chiba Yoshiko's soul. Chapter 585. Bang! As a scream was heard, Chiba Yoshiko retreated a few steps back from Yi Chen's finger. She looked like she was in pain. Clearly, Yi Chen's finger had injured her split soul. Meanwhile, there was fear in her eyes when she looked at Yi Chen. Why, you're a Chinese spell master? There were yin-yang masters in Japan. And there were spell masters in China. In reality, the origin of the Japanese yin-yang masters came from China. Be it the 8 trigrams of Feng Shui or the Book of Changes, they were also regarded as classics in Japan. Yi Chen did not expect his finger to fail to shake her out. He then said, If you're willing to get out, I can consider giving you a quick death. Ah! Chiba Yoshiko was not angry. Instead, she laughed and said, It's still unknown who will win. In the shrine dozens of kilometers away, a cold look flashed across the woman's face. A cold glint flashed across the black-dressed woman's face. Then, she took the golden chrysanthemum in her hand and gently rubbed it. Instantly, countless chrysanthemum petals surged into the light circle projected by over 10 mirrors. The woman in the black dress waved her hand again, and countless vines extended from the courtyard outside the room. They were like living tentacles that drilled into the light circle one after another. Almost at that moment, Yi Chen, who was dozens of kilometers away, felt the sky above his head turn dark. Dark clouds covered the sky in the blink of an eye. The entire world fell into endless darkness in an instant. He could not even see his own fingers. At the same time, a rustling sound came from the forest. He saw the grass in the distance trembling, as if something was speeding towards him. Suddenly, vines rose from the ground and bound his hands and feet. Ha ha ha! A sinister voice rang in his ears like a ferocious ghost's roar. So what if you're a Chinese spellmaster? You'll still die in my territory. At the next moment, a tentacle that was a few times thicker than the other vines appeared quietly from the darkness. Subsequently, it attacked Yi Chen's heart quickly. In the darkness, Chiba Yoshiko licked her lips and revealed a bloodthirsty expression. I've suddenly changed my mind. I want to eat your heart myself and chew your soul. Aren't you celebrating too early? At that moment, a calm voice suddenly sounded. Chiba Yoshiko looked over by instinct. She saw two balls of golden flames appear in Yi Chen's eyes, who was initially immobilized. The two golden flames flickered a few times. These two needle-like golden flames suddenly turned into two dazzling golden pillars of fire that shot out from his eyes. They pierced through the darkness like two pillars of light that pierced through the sky. Under the illumination of the beam of light, the huge tentacle that was stabbing at Yi Chen's heart seemed to have been scalded by boiling water. It instinctively wanted to shrink, but it instantly turned into ashes. Ah! Following a series of incomparably shrill and painful screams, a ball of black gas swept out from between Chiba Yoshiko's eyebrows. Before the ball of black gas could escape, it instantly turned into black smoke. The next moment, the sky is clear and the earth is clear. Chiba Yoshiko's body fell heavily to the ground. Only the crimson clouds in the sky proved that what had just happened was not an illusion. In the Omakiyama shrine, the dozen or so mirrors in front of the woman in the black dress exploded. Countless glass shards pierced deeply into her beautiful facial features, and the woman in the black dress clutched her head and screamed on the ground. Compared to the pain on her face, the pain in the depths of her soul was unbearable because Yi Chen had destroyed a sliver of her soul earlier. The few old men rushed over when they heard the commotion. They knelt on the ground respectfully and waited for their orders. They did not dare to step forward at all, but their faces were filled with shock. The dignified Hitamoto clan master had been severely injured. This had never happened in the history of the Hitamoto clan. What kind of person could possess such strength? Send me to see Lord Soul Eater. Quick, quick! The woman in the black dress's facial features twitched, and her face was covered in blood. In the underground palace of the shrine, a huge stone statue hung on the stone wall. The stone statue looked like the head of a giant ape, and a dark light flashed in the statue's eyes from time to time. The woman in the black dress was no longer as noble as she was in front of outsiders. At this moment she knelt in front of the stone statue respectfully and prostrated. Lord Soul Eater, save me, save me. I'm about to die. The giant ape's eyes suddenly lit up like two green lanterns. A voice that was indistinguishable whether it belonged to a man or a woman rang out, "Since you're about to die, then you're useless. Hand over your soul essence to me." And no, Lord Soul Eater, please. Just as the woman in the black dress was about to raise her head and beg for mercy, the giant ape statue suddenly opened its mouth. A terrifying suction force followed, and a few black shadows floated out of the woman's body. The black shadows revealed fear on their faces as they struggled repeatedly, as if they wanted to resist the suction force. However, they seemed insignificant in the face of the huge suction force. Almost in the blink of an eye, they were all swallowed by the giant ape statue. The few old men kneeling outside became even more nervous when they heard the commotion inside. Their bodies trembled violently. At the same time, at the peak of a snowy mountain in Miyama, a figure stood at the peak and looked into the distance. Luo Yao kept poking the termite nest in front of her with a branch in her hand. She said angrily, Stupid Feng Feng, damn Feng Feng, you lied to me that there are cherry blossoms in Japan. Open your eyes and take a good look. Where are the cherry blossoms? There are cherry blossoms in Japan to begin with. Didn't we come a little early? Tang Jianfeng, who was next to her, looked helpless. I don't care. You promised me. You tricked me out. Don't tell me you want to deny it? Luo Yao glared at him angrily. She was furious. Can you watch your words? Tang Jianfeng's face darkened. He shook his head and said, What do you mean by denying it? Those who don't know might think that we're related and that I've done something to you. Forget it, forget it. I heard that there are cherry blossoms on Mount Fuji. If you really like cherry blossoms, I'll bring you there later. Hearing that, Luo Yao's expression turned sunny. She smiled slyly. I don't like this country. When we go to Tokyo, why don't you help me cut down all the cherry blossoms on Mount Fuji? We'll take the flowers away and use the trees as firewood. The corner of Tang Jianfeng's mouth twitched. Just as he was about to say something, his eyelids twitched and he looked into the distance. Look, what's that? Two golden pillars of light rose from the ground in the sky and pierced into the sky domineeringly. Is there another nuclear leak in Japan? Luo Yao was stunned. Is this a nuclear leak? Can you stop joking? Tang Jianfeng took a deep breath in. Even though we're so far away, I can still feel the spiritual power fluctuations. This is clearly a cultivator's divinity. At this point, his heart started beating faster. It really looks like a divinity. Luo Yao also came back to her senses. A trace of seriousness flashed across her pretty face as she mumbled, Even in Shang Santian, such a divinity can only be performed by almighty powerhouses. Why would it appear in the secular world, let alone Japan? Tang Jianfeng shook his head slightly and said, Let's go and take a look. No matter what, someone who can perform such a divinity is worthy of being called a senior by us. P.S. There's still one more chapter. I'm writing it now. I won't miss it. Chapter 586. Master, I'm sorry. Chiba Yoshiko, who had regained her senses, knelt on the ground with a thud. I almost made a huge mistake. I'm willing to accept any punishment, Master. Although her body was controlled by Hitamoto Chiho's split soul earlier, her consciousness was still there. One could say that she had witnessed the entire battle between Yi Chun and Hitamoto Chiho. If Yi Chun had not unleashed the golden pupil flame at the critical moment, he might have fallen into Hitamoto Chiho's trap. That was why Chiba Yoshiko was so fearful. However, she was more shocked. Hitamoto Chiho, the master of the Hitamoto clan, was defeated by Yi Chun. Even her split soul was destroyed. Although Hitamoto Chiho did not come with her real body, it proved that Yi Chun's ability had exceeded her imagination again. Especially at the critical moment, the two golden pillars of light that shot out of Yi Chun's eyes shocked Chiba Yoshiko. Don't act recklessly without my permission next time. Yi Chun shook his head lightly and walked at the front. His target was the Hitamoto clan on Omakiyama. Through the battle earlier, he had a general understanding of the Japanese's so-called yin-yang master technique. Compared to the Chinese Dao techniques, the Japanese should be called evil technique. Their techniques were extremely strange. If he did not have cultivation experience and his divine consciousness, he would have been at a disadvantage in the battle earlier. Not long after they left, a man and a woman rushed over with a gust of wind. The two of them looked around carefully with bewildered expressions. Luo Yao frowned slightly and said, That's strange. The two pillars of light clearly appeared here, so why isn't there any trace of them? Tang Jianfeng did not say a word. Instead, he squatted down and grabbed a handful of soil under his feet. He pinched it with his hand and sniffed it. He shook his head and said, There's a faint trace of yin energy in the soil. You can even smell that? Luo Yao's eyes lit up immediately. She looked at him as if he was a monster and clicked her tongue in wonder. Xiaofeng, is your nose a dog's? Or are you hiding your ultimate technique behind my back? Tang Jianfeng could not be bothered with her. Instead, he looked around and his eyes flickered. The two golden pillars of light that were similar to divinities belonged to the righteousness method. They shouldn't have any energy. Could it be that two powerhouses fought here before we arrived? Yes, that must be it. He nodded with certainty and stood up. From the looks of it, it's clearly a battle between righteous and evil. The senior who cast the golden pillar of light must have won. You sniffed it out again. Luo Yao was surprised. Tang Jianfeng looked at her helplessly. Of course I thought of it with my brain. I say, Luo Shuiyao, can you be more serious? You're always acting like a madman. Can't you take out the restraint you had on the cruise? I told you to call me Luo Yao outside. Don't call me Luo Shuiyao. Otherwise, I'll fight you to the death. Luo Yao bared her fangs and brandished her claws. After fooling around for a while, Tang Jianfeng took one last look at the scene. It's a pity that I don't have the chance to see that senior's voice and appearance. I wonder if such a powerhouse is Chinese or Japanese. Over half an hour later, Yi Chen led Chiba Yoshiko to the entrance of Omakiyama. As far as the eye could see, there were lush trees on the mountain. From time to time, tourists would enter in an orderly manner with incense and candles in their hands. It was very peaceful. Master, this is Omakiyama. Chiba Yoshiko stopped in her tracks and introduced. It said that this wasn't a tourist attraction, but an ancient battlefield and mass grave. It said that many people were buried here 100 years ago. Ancient battlefield, mass grave? Yi Chen could not help but look at her. She nodded and said, it was vacant for a long time, and everyone thought it was unlucky. Later on, the Hitamoto clan applied to the higher-ups to choose this place as a dojo and built a shrine. Gradually, there were more people here. After saying that, she took a step forward. However, just as she was about to put her foot down, she felt her vision turn black. Then, she saw that the spacious stone steps beneath her feet were shrouded in thick black energy. Rotting, pus oozing out of the hands kept waving in the black gas, as if the evil spirits of hell were desperately trying to grab something and take the opportunity to escape. On the contrary, the rest did not react at all. Chiba Yoshiko screamed and retreated immediately. She looked at Yi Chen in fear. Master, it's just an illusion. It's nothing. Yi Chen smiled lightly and took the lead to walk over. He ignored the rotting hands that were oozing with pus. Chiba Yoshiko clenched her teeth and followed him immediately. Looks like Hitamoto Chiho is trying to stop me from going deeper. Yi Chen thought to himself as he walked. However, I can't figure it out. Since she wants to stop me, why did she only create an illusion? Does she really think that a mere illusion can scare me? He still could not figure it out even after he finished walking the stone step. Apart from the illusion, there was nothing special about the entire process. The first thing he saw was an unusually solemn and ancient building that stood at the peak of the mountain. It was probably the shrine that the Hitamoto clan had built. In the eyes of the Japanese, the so-called shrine was a house that worshipped and sacrificed the various gods in the Shinto sect. It was similar to the temples and dojos in the East. Countless believers slowly walked into the shrine with incense and candles in their hand. In Chiba Yoshiko's eyes, everything had changed. It was clearly broad daylight, but the shrine before her was blurry. It was as if she was in a ball of black fog. In the center of the shrine, there was a statue of a giant toad. The toad was facing the entrance as if it was opening its mouth. Before the believers who were lining up to approach the shrine passed by the statue, traces of red air would be sucked into the statue's mouth. Anyone who walked past the statue would have a terrible expression on their faces, but it could not be seen with the naked eye. Master, why don't we go back? This place is too scary. Chiba Yoshiko was so scared that her legs went limp. Yi Chen saw everything and was secretly surprised. Collecting the essence energy of the believers? A barbarian country actually knows how to refine energy into energy? At that moment, the door of the shrine slowly opened. Subsequently, 3 pale-faced old men in black hunting clothes slowly walked over. The leading old man held a tray in his hand. There was something covered with a red cloth on the tray. What was strange was that when the 3 old men passed by some believers, they brushed past them as if they did not see them. Chiba Yoshiko's pretty face changed when she saw the 3 of them walking toward her. She could not help but move closer to Yi Chen by instinct. She was secretly nervous. "Greetings, powerhouses from China." The 3 of them stopped when they arrived beside Yi Chen. They bowed to him at the same time. There was no hostility on their faces at all. Before Yi Chen could speak, the leading old man said slowly, "Respected powerhouse from China, I think there's a misunderstanding between you and my Hitamoto family, so we've specially prepared this gift for you." After saying that, he slowly untied the red cloth on the tray. Chiba Yoshiko screamed in fear when she saw it. All he saw was a bloody human head on top of the tray. The head's eyes were wide open, as if it had died with a grievance. Its eyes were filled with blood. Chapter 587. Master Eshi's. Looking at the head on the tray, Chiba Yoshiko was so scared that even her voice was trembling. Her beautiful eyes were filled with fear. The head of the Hitamoto clan, one of the 4 yin-yang master clans in Japan, was dead, and even her head had been chopped off. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would not have believed that the bloody face before her was Hitamoto Chiho, who had forcefully entered her body to fight Yi Chen. Yi Chen was slightly shocked as well. Subsequently, he looked at the 3 old men before him with a forced smile. "I didn't expect you guys to kill your own people. In your Chinese words, death is inevitable. It's either heavier than Mount Tai or lighter than a feather." The leading old man smiled lightly. Hitamoto Chiho attacked the China No. 1, Mad Southern Yi, without permission. This has already violated the interests of the Hitamoto clan. Therefore, the elders have taken her life as an apology to you, Mad Southern Yi. He revealed Yi Chen's true identity immediately. He must have done some investigation before this. Not only did Yi Chen not accept their kindness, but he also scoffed. "You want to apologize to me with a mere life? Aren't you guys being too naive? If Hitamoto Chiho died, there would be another Hitamoto Chiho. These people before him were just trying to fool him." Hearing that, the 3 old men's expressions changed. A hint of anger flashed through their eyes, but they did not flare up in the end. One of them said, "May I know what else Mad Southern Yi needs? Feel free to speak your mind." "That's right. As long as it's something that the Hitamoto clan can provide, we'll try our best to satisfy you, whether it's money or women." The leading old man nodded. "I don't want money or women." Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at the 3 of them with an extremely dignified gaze and said word by word, "I want foreign fragments, especially all the foreign fragments collected by the Hitamoto clan and the other 3 yin-yang master clans." As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the 3 old men from the Hitamoto clan changed at the same time, as if their secret had been exposed. At the same time, the 3 of them surrounded Yi Chen intentionally or unintentionally. They could not hide the intense killing intent in their eyes. At this moment, their reactions were completely different from their previous friendliness. Yi Chen's expression did not change when he saw that. He remained standing with his hands behind his back, but an extremely mocking smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. The next moment, the old man in the lead suddenly looked behind him. His lips moved slightly, and there was a hint of disbelief on his face, as if he was communicating with someone. After a while, he turned around and looked at Yi Chen. He was not as cold as before. Instead, he said while smiling, "Master Mad Southern Yi, it's not impossible for you to get the foreign fragment, but you have to talk to my master personally." After saying this, he made an inviting gesture. "All right." Yi Chen took a good look at the depths of the shrine. A meaningful smile flashed through his eyes. Under the trio's lead, Yi Chen and Chiba Yoshiko soon arrived at a room that led from north to south. There were all sorts of statues hanging on the wall. Boom! Almost at that moment, the wall that was facing Yi Chen suddenly retracted, revealing a tunnel that allowed people to enter and exit. It was pitch black inside the tunnel, and he could not see the bottom. It was as if there was a cloud of black mist lingering inside. My master is inside. This way, please. The leading old man smiled as his eyes flickered. Sensing their abnormality, Chiba Yoshiko subconsciously stopped them. Master, don't go in. It might be a trap. The door is here. It's up to you whether to enter or not. The leading old man smiled faintly. If you're worried, you don't have to enter. You can just enjoy some vegetarian food in the Hitamoto clan and leave. Master. Chiba Yoshiko hesitated to speak. Wait for me outside. Yi Chen chuckled softly and looked at the three of them meaningfully. He said, I believe they won't dare to touch you. With that, he took a step into the tunnel. At that moment, the door of the tunnel slowly closed and turned into a wall again. Outsiders could not tell what was going on inside. After Yi Chen disappeared, Chiba Yoshiko wanted to go out by instinct. However, she was stopped by an old man. Ms. Chiba, your master is still inside. I'm afraid it's inappropriate for you to leave just like that, right? Chiba Yoshiko's heart sank. Move aside. I'm going out to wait for my master. How can it be better outside than inside? Ms. Chiba, you should just wait inside. The other old man said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. His greedy eyes sized up her body without concealment. The other two old men looked at each other and saw a hint of treachery in each other's eyes. After Yi Chen stepped into the tunnel, he saw a scene that looked like a large underground palace. What entered his eyes was a scene similar to a large underground palace. The surroundings were filled with traces of man-made excavation. It was about a few hundred square meters, and the stone walls were engraved with countless fierce ghosts and monsters. All of them were baring their fangs and glaring angrily. Before him was a suspension bridge. It was made of iron chains and was about 30 meters long. It could allow a person to pass through, but it was surrounded by endless black energy, making it difficult to see clearly. Meanwhile, magma was surging under the suspension bridge. It was like boiling water, as if there were countless things struggling in the magma. Yi Chen did not hesitate and stepped onto the suspension bridge directly. At the same time, he spread his divine consciousness out in an attempt to find the so-called god of the Hitamoto clan. Even though the three of them had concealed it well, it did not escape his eyes. To him, Hitamoto Chiho, the master of the Hitamoto clan, was not sentenced to death by the elders. To be precise, she died in the hands of this mysterious god. Just as he stepped onto the suspension bridge, a faint drum sound came from all directions. A faint drumming sound came from all directions, as if someone was beating a drum. As he advanced, the sound of the drum became stronger and stronger. In the end, it seemed to be able to topple mountains and overturn seas. It was like a forest of spears and tens of thousands of horses galloping. Is that the sound of the ravenous wolf army and the 7 kills army? Yi Chen's calm face finally revealed a hint of seriousness. He could not be more familiar with this voice. It was the 2 armies that he had personally created when he ascended to the position of Heavenly Emperor in the immortal world. Each army had 100,000 heavenly soldiers. The Ravenous Wolf Army and the 7 Kills Army could be said to be his 2 great killing weapons. They had fought for him and suppressed hundreds of races. They had conquered countless immortal world territories. Unknowingly, an extremely tragic scene of a battlefield appeared before Yi Chen's eyes. On an extremely open area there were carriages that were like dragons and horses. Tens of thousands of armor were lying in ambush, and there were endless swords and weapons. Murderous aura covered the sky, and the neighing of horses, battle cries, and screams of pain were endless. Countless corpses floated across the starry sky. It was like hell on earth. Kill! A golden-armored man slashed his opponent like a god. He turned around and knelt on one knee before Yi Chen, ignoring the blood on his face. "Your Majesty, the rebel army has cut off our retreat. The devil world, the demon world, and the Buddha world are still sending more troops. Please leave first. I'll lead the ravenous wolf army to cover your retreat." Yi Chen could not help but take 2 steps back. The ravenous wolf army's heavenly king, Li Wenyao? He looked at himself subconsciously and realized that he was wearing a flat crown, a golden dragon robe, and a pair of dragon boots. Around him, there were hundreds of blood-soaked soldiers wearing black masks. These people protected him with all their might. Yi Chen's expression changed immediately. The royal army? Chapter 588. Royal Guards, why aren't you escorting His Majesty away? At this moment, the golden-armored man roared, "Let's go. Send His Majesty away. As long as His Majesty can return to the heavenly court, these rebels and traitors will all be killed on the immortal slaying platform." Tens of thousands of people in black armor charged over from afar. The golden-armored man stood with his saber horizontally, his eyes wide open as he shouted, "Where are the 100,000 ravenous wolf army soldiers?" Ha! 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 As soon as he said that, golden-armored soldiers with faces covered in blood crawled out from the mountain of corpses and sea of bones. Some of them had lost arms, while others were covered in saber wounds. However, they were all standing behind the golden-armored man. The so-called 100,000 ravenous wolf army soldiers were only a few thousand people. However, it was these few thousand people who erupted with an extremely tragic aura. Yi Chen could not help but shout when he saw that, "Li Wenyao, get back here!" The golden-armored man turned around and gave him a pale smile. "Your Majesty, I, Li Wenyao, am willing to go through fire and water for you for generations. Kill! Kill!" After saying that, the golden-armored man turned around resolutely to look at the tens of thousands of black-armored rebels chasing after him. Then, he charged over. "I am the ravenous wolf army's heavenly king, Li Wenyao, under His Majesty the Eastern Heavenly Emperor. Does anyone in the rebel army dare to fight me?" However, in the face of his earth-shattering laughter, the tens of thousands of black-armored rebels stopped in unison. Then, a cold snort was heard, "Fire!" At the next moment, tens of thousands of spirit-breaking bows covered the sky and earth like an army of locusts. Following waves of screams, countless remaining ravenous wolf army soldiers fell to the ground one after another. Those who survived continued to charge forward fearlessly. Fire! Another round of spirit-breaking bows approached from afar. The golden-armored man's body was pierced by dozens of arrows. Scarlet blood flowed down like a pillar of water. The armor on his body was completely shattered, and his helmet was shattered by an arrow, revealing an extremely handsome face. "Traitor, all of you must die. All of you must die." The golden-armored man spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His eyes were bloodshot as he charged into the He army's camp fearlessly. "Li Wenyao, come back!" Yi Chen was enraged to see that. He subconsciously wanted to go over, but he was stopped by the Imperial Guards beside him. "Your Majesty, let's go. You haven't lost yet. You still have the mirror-wielding heavenly kings of the 4 heavenly gates." Yi Chen wanted to resist. However, he was held up by someone and kept retreating. He could only watch helplessly as Li Wenyao charged into the rebel army's camp and began a massacre. In the end, he died in battle and was beheaded by a rebel general. "No!" Yi Chen roared in rage. He wanted to struggle, but he realized that he could not muster any strength at all. This was his beloved general, but in order to protect him, she died in battle. A dark-faced burly man walked out from the Imperial army that was escorting him. He glanced at the rebel army that had caught up again and shouted, "Leave 1,000 brothers to follow me." As soon as these words were spoken, 1,000 royal guards stepped out in unison. There was no fear, no panic, only a sense of self-sacrifice, and only a sense of loyalty. "Hu Yanlei, don't go!" Yi Chen's body shook violently. "Your Majesty!" The dark-faced burly man held a pair of iron halberds and knelt before Yi Chen. There was a calm smile on his face. "This is the last time I'll call you your majesty. Royal guards, follow me and kill." He stood up abruptly and charged over with his two halberds in hand. "Your majesty, let's go." The remaining 2,000 royal guards surrounded him and retreated again. The mirror-wielding commander of the royal guards, Hu Yanlei, died. The 7 Kills Army's mirror-wielding Heavenly King, Wang Lin, died. The mirror-wielding Heavenly King of the Southern Heavenly Gate, Wei Lin, died in battle. The mirror-wielding Heavenly King of the Northern Heavenly Gate, as he kept retreating, Yi Chen witnessed the deaths of his generals one after another. There were hundreds of thousands of soldiers with them. His tears flowed slowly. These were all brothers and friends who had followed him since the beginning. They had been with him for thousands of years. In the end, in order to protect him, everyone knew that they would die, but they still did not hesitate, and he could only watch helplessly. However, he had no ability at all. When the royal guards risked their lives to escort him to the stormy gorge, there were only 100 royal guards left from the original 3,000. Every one of their faces was covered in blood and they were exhausted. If the commander died, the deputy commander would use his life to fill the gap. If the deputy commander died, the chiliarch would continue, followed by the centurion. The highest-ranking deputy centurion in the royal guards wiped his blood and said, "Your Majesty, as long as we cross the stormy gorge, we'll be able to reach the heavenly court. Please hold on a little longer." As soon as he said that, waves of tsunami-like voices suddenly came from all directions of the stormy gorge. "Mad Southern Yi, where do you think you're going? Mad Southern Yi, where do you think you're going?" Countless flags and human heads suddenly appeared out of thin air from all directions of the stormy gorge. There were rebels in black armor, the army of the demon world, the army of the devil world, and the army of the Buddha world. As far as the eye could see, it was densely packed, almost filling the entire stormy gorge, causing the entire world to be filled with a murderous aura. "Protect His Majesty." The expressions of the remaining 100 or so royal guards changed at the same time. They set up formations to protect Yi Chen. At that moment, a man in a red robe rode over on 9 dragons. His handsome face revealed an incomparably ferocious expression. "Master, 5 of the 6 heavenly kings under you, the north, south, east, west, 7 kills, and ravenous wolf, have died. 1 has surrendered. To put it bluntly, you're now all alone." At this point, he did not hide the pride on his face. "Now that you've been sealed by us with the ultimate kill formation and blocked by 1,000,000 troops, you won't be able to escape. Surrender. As long as you hand over the heavenly policy, I can spare your life on account of our relationship as master and disciple." Amitabha, a dignified monk with 3 flowers on his head and a Bodhi holy light lotus platform, slowly walked out. He pressed his palms together and said with compassion, "Benefactor Yi, you've killed too much and have fallen into the demonic Tao. Why don't you convert to Buddhism and let this old monk recite sutras for you?" A huge, black-faced god-fiend with 2 horns on his head stood in the air. "Heavenly Emperor Yi, you can be considered a leader of a generation. As long as you're willing to surrender, I, Apollo, can represent the devil world to spare your life." "Mad Southern Yi, you're already at the end of your rope. What are you waiting for if you don't kneel and surrender?" An extremely enchanting woman with her navel exposed laughed out loud. "Ha ha ha ha." Yi Chen lifted his eyes and looked around. He glanced at everyone and suddenly laughed out loud. "What did I, Yi Chen, do to make the Western Buddha Master, the Southern Demon Emperor, and the Northern Demon Monarch work together against me?" After saying that, his gaze finally landed on the red-robed young man who was sitting on the carriage pulled by 9 dragons. He laughed maniacally. "You wench Yuan, I don't care about others, but as my disciple, I've treated you well. However, you're bent on killing me. How pathetic." His laughter was mixed with endless mockery and sorrow. His laughter seemed to make the entire world lose its color. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. The red-robed man's expression turned cold as he flew into a rage out of humiliation. Since you're unwilling to hand over the heavenly policy, don't blame me for being ruthless. With that, he waved his hand. Over 10 people slowly walked out of the crowd, and behind them were a few people. It was Su Yuhan, Mengmeng, Yi Wushuang, the patriarch of hell, Lin Tai, Yang Tian. Mengmeng burst into tears as soon as she saw Yi Chen. Daddy, save me, save me. P.S. There's still one more chapter. I'll update tonight. Chapter 589. Daddy, save me! Save me! The little girl's cries resounded through the entire world. It was like a bolt from the blue that struck Yi Chen's heart. Yi Chen took a step back suddenly. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if an invisible awl had stabbed into his heart. Pain. Unimaginable pain, indescribable pain. It was so painful that he could not breathe. It was as if his soul had been stripped out of his body at this moment. Daughter, my daughter! He endured the pain and swept his gaze across the people opposite him. There was Su Yuhan, his parents, his second uncle's family, the white-clothed young man, Yi Wushuang, the patriarch of hell, Yang Tian, and Lin Tai. An inexplicable rage and panic rose in him. These people were either his closest relatives, his friends, brothers, or subordinate. However, they were all captured by Yu Wenxuan. Master, how do you feel? Yu Wenxuan smiled playfully and said, I've captured your wife, daughter, parents, and even people related to you. Now that your family is reunited, shouldn't you thank me? Traitorous disciple, this is the grudge between you and me. Why do you have to involve my family? Yi Chen suppressed the pain in him as his lips trembled slightly. Master, you're too terrifying. Yu Wenxuan stared at him fixedly. The closer I get to you, the more I can feel how terrifying you are. I'm very afraid of you, really, but I'm also interested in your position. I also want to rule the world and rule the heavens. Therefore, in order to prevent any accidents from happening, not only did I join forces with the 3 realms of demons, and Buddha to deal with you, I even sent people to the lower realm to capture your family. Because of this, I felt that nothing would go wrong. At this point, his expression turned cold. I've suddenly changed my mind. I want you to kill yourself in front of me. As for the heavenly plan, I'll naturally find a way after you die. Do you really want me to die that much? Yi Chen forced a smile. Of course. Yu Wenxuan admitted it openly. I can't rest easy if you don't die. I'll give you a chance now. Kill yourself in front of me. Otherwise, I'll kill one person every 10 breaths. Kneel. He looked at Su Yuhan and the rest coldly. His expression was extremely dignified, and no one dared to defy him. Under his pressure, Su Yuhan and the rest could not resist at all. They knelt on the ground with a thud. Only Mengmeng was not affected. She was still squatting on the ground and crying. Yu Wenxuan reached out and hugged Mengmeng. He ignored her resistance and said to Yi Chen while smiling, Master, this is your daughter, right? In terms of seniority, I should call her junior sister. Little junior sister's aptitude is not bad, and she's quite cute. You wouldn't be willing to see little junior sister die in front of you, would you? His eyes were filled with coldness. Yi Chen closed his eyes slowly as 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks. He looked like he was in extreme pain. Why did you force me? Since you don't want to choose, then let me choose for you. Yu Wenxian coldly snorted and pointed at Yi Hai, who was kneeling on the ground. This is your father. If you don't commit suicide within 10 breaths, he will die. Little Chen, save me, save me. Yi Hai struggled. No. Yi Chen wanted to charge over by instinct, but he was stopped by the royal guards next to him. Your Majesty, you can't go over. Time's up. Yu Wenxuan's expression turned cold as he pointed a finger between Yi Hai's brows. Yi Hai's body immediately fell to the ground and he stopped breathing. Your mother is next. No. Yi Chen groaned and staggered. He half knelt on the ground and spat a mouthful of blood. He looked like he was in extreme pain. Die. Yuan Xuan pointed a finger between Wu Lan's brows. Wu Lan was dead. Yuan Xuan grabbed Su Yuhan, who was on the ground, and lifted her into the air. He grinned ferociously and said, "This is Master's wife, right? She's a beauty." Su Yuhan, who was in the air, was blushing. She could not stop struggling and looked at Yi Chen for help. "Yi Chen, save me. I don't want to die. If you still love me, can you die for me?" "Yuhan." Yi Chen looked at her in disbelief. He felt that something was wrong, but he could not tell what was wrong. "Don't doubt my feelings for you." Su Yuhan choked and said, "If it was in the past, I definitely wouldn't be afraid to die with you. However, we have a daughter now. Meng Meng is still young. One of us has to sacrifice for her. Time's up. Die." Yuan Xuan snorted coldly. Su Yuhan, who was in the air, was instantly turned into ashes. He pointed at the Patriarch of Hell on the ground again. "Master, it's his turn. Fellow Yi, don't worry about me. I've lived for tens of thousands of years. I've lived enough." The Patriarch of Hell laughed out loud. His face was filled with determination, and he was not afraid of death at all. Yi Chen's eyes were a little dazed. "Fellow Zhuang." He couldn't help but recall the first time he met the old ancestor. When the old ancestor saw that he was no match for him, he admitted defeat and begged for mercy. The only time the old ancestor was unyielding was when he was forced into a corner. The Patriarch of Hell before him made him respect and feel touched. However, there was a hint of unfamiliarity. "This isn't the Patriarch I know." Seeing Yuan Xuan's palm coming at him, the Patriarch of Hell closed his eyes and fearlessly said, "Fellow Yi, I'm going." "Wait." Yi Chen suddenly stopped him. He could not help but ask when he saw the Patriarch of Hell and Yuan Xuan looking over at the same time, "Patriarch, do you want a caddy of Marlboro and a Japanese adult action movie album before you leave?" "What?" The Patriarch of Hell blurted out subconsciously. "You're not the Patriarch," Yi Chen said firmly. A hint of clarity gradually returned to his eyes. "Fake, haha, so you're fake." A trace of panic flashed through the Patriarch of Hell's eyes when he heard that. Then, he said unhappily, "Fellow Yi, how can you still doubt my identity at a time like this? Do you know why I said you're fake?" Yi Chen chuckled and said to himself, "That's because the Patriarch of Hell has two hobbies: women and dog food, especially women." Before he was on the verge of death, his only last words were to get people to burn the latest Japanese adult action movie album for him every year. He raised his head to look at the Patriarch of Hell, who was getting more and more flustered. "In what I said earlier, Marlboro is his favorite dog food brand. You actually didn't react immediately. So, you're not the Patriarch of Hell." Yi Chen was more certain of his guess as he spoke to this point. At the next moment, the Patriarch of Hell in the distance turned into nothingness. Yi Chen's gaze slowly swept past Lin Tai, Yang Tian, and Meng Meng, who were in the distance. "Since he's fake, you guys must be fake too." Yang Tian, Lin Tai, and Meng Meng disappeared instantly. "You guys are fake too." Yi Chen looked at the so-called Demon Emperor of the South, the Buddha Master of the West, the Demon Monarch of the North, the remaining dozens of royal guards, and the millions of troops of the three realms. Whoosh! Just as he finished speaking, the entire world suddenly became much emptier. For a moment, only Yuan Xuan, who was riding on the 9 dragons zipper, was left. However, at that moment, his face was filled with fear. Was it fun? Yi Chen looked at him slowly. A smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. "The god behind the Hitamoto clan, the illusion you created isn't bad." Chapter 590. The god behind the Hitamoto clan, the illusion you created isn't too shabby. As soon as Yi Chen said that, the space before him fluctuated a few times. Subsequently, the scene before him shook violently. The scene before him turned into the underground palace of the Hitamoto clan's shrine again. At that moment, he was still standing on the suspension bridge. Opposite him stood an old man in a green Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk. The old man had a protruding mouth and a pair of monkey cheeks. His cheekbones were high, and he did not look like a normal person. However, the old man's expression was extremely terrible. There was deep fear in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen. "You're the first one to walk out of my illusion. I have to say that your illusion ability is very powerful. It's so powerful that I almost believe it's real." Yi Chen smiled lightly. There were only two things in his heart. One was the betrayal in the immortal world, and the other was his parents, wife, and daughter. When the two things were connected, it would become an inner demon. Ever since he returned to Earth, even though he had been forcing himself not to think about the immortal world, he was still worried deep down. He was worried that the immortal world would find out that he was still alive, and he was worried that his traitorous disciple would send people to the lower realm to deal with him and his family. As the saying went, concern would make one confused. That was why he fell into the illusion earlier so easily. He shook his head slightly and said, "However, a fake is a fake. A fake can't be real. Do you know why I can tell that it's fake?" The old man remained silent as his eyes flickered non-stop. Although he was the one who created the illusion, he had no idea what Yi Chen was experiencing. It was completely by triggering Yi Chen's inner demon. Naturally, things developed in the direction that he was most afraid of. He had been here for over 100 years. During this period, he had encountered countless people who had barged into the shrine's underground palace, but none of them had woken up from the illusion. Yi Chen was the only exception. Yi Chen said with a disdainful smile, "Because you don't understand people. To be precise, you don't understand human nature. The people in your illusion are too pure, and they have a strong goal. The so-called illusion. It was fake. Everything inside was not offensive at all. The greatest effect of the illusion was to attack the victim's mind by presenting a fake scene, causing them to fall into madness or self-destruction. In the previous environment, Yi Chen's parents asked Yi Chen to save them as soon as they spoke. Although such a scene was logical, it was inhumane. Yi Chen believed that if his parents really fell into the enemy's hands, they would rather die than let anything happen to them. They were already like that, let alone Su Yuhan, who was Yi Chen's wife. The biggest flaw was the Patriarch of Yellow Spring in the illusory realm. As for Patriarch Yellow Spring, Yi Chen knew him better than anyone else. This person was cunning and afraid of death. If he was really captured, he would definitely ask Yi Chen to save him. Why would he say those words of righteousness and risking his life? "I have to say you are very smart." The old man's frown eased after hearing what Yi Chen said. He could not help but sneer. "However, the illusion is just a small trick of mine. I haven't used my real ability yet." However, Yi Chen interrupted him before he could finish. "After saying so much, I'm thinking, is it time for you to take off this layer of skin on your body?" As soon as he finished speaking, the old man's initially fearless expression froze. The old man's originally fearless expression froze. Then, a hint of panic flashed across his face. "I don't understand what you're saying. Since you're unwilling to take it off, let me help you." Yi Chen smirked coldly and took a step forward. He curled his fingers slightly and grabbed at the old man. The old man's expression changed. He chose to escape instead of fighting. His body turned into a black ray of light and charged into the depths of the underground palace. "Where do you think you're going?" How could he be faster than Yi Chen, who was moving at full speed? Yi Chen slapped his back within a few breaths of time. Subsequently, he flew out like a kite with its string cut. Eventually, he smashed hard into the stone wall, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The old man slowly stood up from the ground. The aura on his body suddenly changed, becoming cold, violent, and bloodthirsty. "Since you insist on seeing my real body, I'll let you see as much as you want. You forced me to do this." At the next moment, he stretched out his hand to grab his own face. He pulled it down again. "Hiss! With a crisp sound that sounded like a zipper being pulled, a piece of human skin fell to the ground along with his clothes. A hairy thing stood in front of Yi Chen. It was a monkey that could stand on its feet. It was the size of a 4 or 5-year-old baby. Its entire body was dark green, and its eyes were deeply sunken, revealing only its eye sockets. The most terrifying thing was that its nose was so big that it almost took up half of its face. If one took a closer look, they would discover that it had 3 nostrils. The third nostril was below a normal person's 2 nostrils. It was as thick as a thumb, and it was currently spewing black gas. There was a black demon pattern on its chest. It was a demon with 2 horns on its head, a pair of wings on its back, and a vertical eye on its forehead. It gave off an extremely terrifying vibe. Monkey? Yi Chen could not help but frown when he saw that, the red-bone horseape of the 4 chaotic monkeys. The god that the Hitamoto clan had been worshipping was actually a monkey. No. He then shook his head and said, "It's not the red-bone horseape." He realized that with his experience, he could not recognize the other party's identity. It looked like a monkey but not a monkey, like a mirage beast but not a mirage beast. The thing before him did not belong to the 10 species and 2 of the monkey family, nor was it the red-bone horseape, long-armed ape monkey, 6-eared macaque, or spiritual stone monkey of the 4 chaotic monkeys. Spiritual stone monkey. Capable of transformation, knows the weather, knows the geography, and can shift the stars. Red-bone horseape. Knows yin and yang, knows the ways of the world, is good at entering and exiting, avoids death and prolongs life. Long-armed ape monkey. Holds the sun and moon, shrinks 1,000 mountains, defends blame, and manipulates the universe. 6-eared macaque. Good at listening, observant, knows the front and back, and knows everything. Thinking to this point, he could not help but look at the guy before him with interest. "What exactly are you?" "I'm not a thing," the monkey said by instinct. It suddenly bared its teeth at Yi Chen and growled, "Brat, I know you're very powerful. I don't want to be your enemy. If you know what's good for you, get out now. I'm not someone that you can invite and send away just because you want to. Moreover, you put me in an illusion earlier. This grudge is formed." Yi Chen scoffed and became more and more indifferent. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The monkey could not stop baring its teeth at Yi Chen. 2 sharp fangs appeared at the corner of its mouth, and its eyes were bloodshot. "You forced me to do this." Following an extremely violent growl, the nose on its face instantly expanded. Its 3 nostrils suddenly enlarged, and 3 rays of green light shot out from its nostrils. An extremely powerful suction force came subsequently, and its target was Yi Chen. Yi Chen felt like his soul was about to leave his body. His expression changed slightly as if he had thought of something. This is Chapter 4. Haha, are you surprised? Are you surprised? I'll try to update more in the future. I'm looking for recommendation votes and monthly vote. Thank you for your support. Chapter 591. 3 rays of green light shot out of the monkey's nostrils. Yi Chen felt an extremely powerful suction force coming from it. This suction force was different from ordinary suction force because it seemed to only target a person's soul, causing him to feel as if his soul was about to come out. This is, Yi Chen's expression changed slightly as a thought flashed through his mind. Subsequently, he stared at the monkey before him. "Weeping Soul Beast, you're the wild mutant Weeping Soul Beast." Everyone thought that the immortal world was beautiful and that it was a paradise on earth. However, they did not know that the immortal world was even vaster than the mortal world. Countless planes and worlds intersected with the immortal world. The immortal world also had the wilderness, the ghost region, the entrance to the astral unknown, and the ruins of ancient battlefields. It was just like how there were bandits, pirates, venomous snakes, and ferocious beasts outside a small ancient city. The wilderness was an extremely desolate area that was shrouded in poisonous smoke all year round. It was chaotic, and there were countless ferocious and even uncivilized existences hidden there. For example, there were people who were wanted by the immortal world because they had committed crimes and had no choice but to flee to the wilderness to live. There were also ancient immortals, wild beasts, and acquired gods and demons that had existed since the birth of the immortal world. These existences were equivalent to the native living beings of the immortal world. In the beginning, they ruled the immortal world. Later on, more and more immortals ascended from the lower realm. These people were all almighties who could suppress a world in the lower realm. After ascending to the immortal world, how could they be willing to be enslaved by others? Therefore, they started a war. In the end, the native living beings of the immortal world either died or surrendered. The remaining ones hid in the wilderness and the astral unknown, trying to make a comeback. There were 10 mutants in the wilderness. All of them were existences that could fly and overturn rivers and seas. The strangest among them was the weeping soul beast that was ranked 8. It was a strange creature that was between a spirit beast and a demon soul. It looked like a monkey and was completely green. It could spit out yellow soul-sucking divine light, and it was born to suck souls and devour souls. It could be said that such an existence was the nemesis of all spirits and ghosts. An adult weeping soul beast could devour the souls of all living beings in a small world. However, it could only target living beings with souls. It was harmless to soulless living beings. For example, in the investiture of the gods, Neza, who was the incarnation of a lotus root. However, the weeping soul beast in front of him was at most an infant. But how did the immortal world's wild mutants appear on Earth? Yi Chen came to a realization as he thought to this point. He could not help but say while smiling, "I understand now. No wonder you didn't leave the underground palace to attack me when I asked for the foreign fragment. Instead, you invited me into the underground palace to lower my guard. After that, you set up an illusion to lure me into the trap. You wanted to kill me in the illusion because other than being able to set up illusions and devour souls, you don't have the slightest offensive ability. The reason why you didn't appear to devour my soul from the very beginning is because you have to pay a certain price to use this innate ability. To be precise, you aren't sure if you have the ability to devour my soul." As his voice fell. "So what if it's as you say? You realized it too late. Not only will I devour your soul, but I will also occupy your body." The monkey's expression became more and more unsightly. It let out a low roar and increased its suction force. Azure light continuously gushed out of its third nostril. It hated. Before this, it had relied on its ability to devour souls to become the Hitamoto clan's most respected god. It was worshipped by countless yin-yang masters in Japan. Every year, countless virgins would be sent to him to devour their souls. Outsiders thought that it was a god and that it was omnipotent. What a beautiful day it was! What a salted fish life! However, as Yi Chen arrived, it was like a little wife who had been stripped naked and thrown onto the bed. It had no secrets at all. If he were to spread the news that the Hitamoto clan's supreme god was a monkey, and apart from being able to devour souls and set up illusions, it did not have any divine might at all, what would outsiders think of it? Would the Hitamoto clan still be respectful to it in the future? As the azure light between its nostrils expanded, the suction force grew stronger. The soul in Yi Chen's body shook more and more violently. However, Yi Chen still stood with his hands behind his back. He shook his head and sighed. "If you evolve to adulthood, I'd be helpless against you. But you can't now." After saying that, his divine consciousness spread out from his mudball palace. The space beside him trembled slightly, and an invisible energy barrier condensed in front of him. It was a divine consciousness wall condensed from divine consciousness. It could isolate the other party's soul-devouring power. Yi Chen only possessed this ability after his divine consciousness soared after breaking through to foundation building. If he was at Spirit Assembly, he would probably have a headache facing the monkey's innate ability. The monkey stomped its feet in anger. It scratched its ears and cheeks as it roared, damn it, damn it! Why can't I absorb your soul? I told you, you can't. Yi Chen smirked coldly. Even the king of hell doesn't dare to take my soul, let alone you? Since you want to play, I'll let you absorb as much as you want. In the next moment, he split a wisp of divine consciousness and shot it at the monkey. His divine consciousness turned into an invisible blade in the air and stabbed at the monkey's nostrils. At the same time, in the room above the underground palace, the three old men from the Hitamoto clan looked at each other. Their eyes flickered nonstop. One of the old men looked in the direction of the stone wall and could not help but ask, Tanigawa-kun, half an hour has passed, but Yi still hasn't come out. Could it be that Lord Soul Eater succeeded? The other two could not help but flash with joy when they heard that. They respected Lord Soul Eater's ability from the bottom of their hearts, especially after they witnessed Hitamoto Chiho's soul being swallowed by Lord Soul Eater. They became even more terrified. One had to know that with Hitamoto Chiho's ability, not to mention the Hitamoto clan, even in the entire Japan, there were only a handful of people who could compare to her. There was almost no one who could kill her. However, Lord Shikigami had done it. Chiba Yoshiko, who had been calculating the time from the beginning to the end, could not help but stutter when she heard that. What did you do to my master? Hee. The old man who spoke earlier immediately laughed sinisterly. Your master hasn't come out after half an hour. I'm afraid his soul has already been devoured by Lord Soul Eater. Just give up. As he spoke, he could not help but size up Chiba Yoshiko lecherously. He secretly thought about how he would deal with her body after Lord Soul Eater devoured her soul. China's number one? I don't think so. Another old man chuckled and said, he was tricked by our sweet words. He only has brute force but no brains. How can such a person become the number one in China? What a joke. Chapter 592. If the news of the China number one dying at the hands of our Hitamoto clan gets out, our clan will definitely shock the world. Our status in Japan will definitely be much higher than the other three clans. The three of them spoke one after another, not hiding the excitement and pride on their faces at all. They no longer cared about Chiba Yoshiko who was beside them. Chiba Yoshiko immediately collapsed to the ground. Her pretty face was pale, and her eyes were filled with despair. Could Master really be dead? Who in the entire Japan could protect her if Yi Chen died? Boom! At that moment, a loud bang was heard, as if a building had collapsed. The entire ground shook violently. A black shadow broke out from the ground and shot into the sky like a cannonball. It directly smashed through the roof before falling to the ground again, creating a huge hole. What happened? Everyone was terrified. At the next moment, an extremely skinny figure leaped out from the ground with his hands behind his back. He landed beside the hole like a god descending from the heavens. He stood with his hands behind his back and said, I told you, you can't do it. After seeing the other party's appearance, Chiba Yoshiko, who was originally in despair, was pleasantly surprised. Master, why you're not dead? On the other hand, the three old men from the Hitamoto clan were stunned on the spot. They still maintained the smiles on their faces, but their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. They were discussing that Yi Chen's soul might have been devoured by Lord Soul Eater earlier. However, Yi Chen appeared safe and sound in the next moment. Did it mean that Lord Soul Eater could do nothing to him if he could come out safely? To be precise, Lord Soul Eater was not his match? Also, what was the first thing that flew out? The three of them shuddered and hurriedly looked at the hole at the side. They were stunned again, and they immediately looked as if they had seen a ghost. They saw a monkey the size of a 4 or 5-year-old child struggling in the hole. The monkey's entire body was emerald green, and its nose was extremely huge. However, its body was covered in cracks. One of their expressions changed. He suddenly looked at the monkey in the hole, and seemed to have thought of something. He said weakly, that's right. It's the Supreme Lord Soul Eater that your Hitamoto clan has worshipped for hundreds of years. Yi Chen placed his hands behind his back as a playful grin appeared at the corner of his lips. The three of them were dumbfounded. The omnipotent Lord Soul Eater was a monkey? How was this possible? She was just like the female streamer who never opened her camera to broadcast live in the hearts of all the fans. Her Lolita voice made all the fans infatuated, and more than once they imagined the appearance of the goddess in their hearts. However, one day, the female streamer accidentally switched on the camera when she was connecting the microphone. What was revealed was a fat, yellowish old granny with a fat body. Even Chiba Yoshiko was dumbfounded. Squeak, squeak, squeak! The monkey in the hole trembled violently a few times. Subsequently, it shot out of the hole all of a sudden. It looked at Yi Chen with bloodshot eyes and roared, "Damn it, how dare you hurt me? You bastard, how dare you injure me?" The monkey started to go berserk like a wild beast that had gone mad. All the hair on its body stood up, and an endless ruthless aura enveloped the entire room. Forget about being injured by Yi Chen. He even embarrassed himself in front of his subordinates. It swore that it had never been so angry before. At this moment, an incredulous exclamation came from the side. It's really Lord Soul Eater's voice." The expressions of the three old men from the Hitamoto clan were extremely interesting. If they still had any doubts about the monkey's identity earlier, or to be precise, they still had a glimmer of hope for the Lord Soul Eater in their hearts. However, after the monkey spoke, they had no choice but to believe it even if they were unwilling to. The enraged monkey suddenly released streams of black energy. At the same time, its body expanded by several times. From afar, it looked like a gorilla. Before anyone could react, it snorted, and rays of green light shot out from its nostrils. They turned into streams of light and enveloped the three old men from the Hitamoto clan. This sudden scene caught the three elders of the Hitamoto clan off guard. By the time they reacted and wanted to move, they realized that they couldn't move at all. At the same time, a huge suction force kept tearing at them, as if it wanted to tear their souls out of their bodies. "No, no. Lord Soul Eater, spare me! Spare me! Lord Soul Eater, we're your most loyal servants. You can't do this. I don't want to die." Sensing that the suction force was getting stronger, the three of them were terrified. They kept begging. However, the suction force did not weaken. Instead, it became more and more terrifying. In the end, dozens of black energy shadows shot out from the three of them. As soon as the shadows appeared, they subconsciously tried to escape. Dozens of people outside rushed in subconsciously when they heard the commotion. However, before they could figure out what was going on, countless black energy shadows shot out from their bodies. Bang, 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 all the black energy shadows turned into black energy and were sucked into the monkey's body. Their bodies fell to the ground one after another, and they were no longer breathing. Their faces were dead, and they still retained the fear they had when they were alive. Nearly 100 people had died with a single breath. Seeing that, Chiba Yoshiko felt her scalp go numb. She almost fainted on the spot. One had to know that the three old men were top powerhouses in Japan. However, they died on the spot. Then, she looked at the monkey. At that moment, its body was getting larger and larger. It had grown to over 10 meters tall and broke the roof of the room. It was like a giant. Meanwhile, Yi Chen and Chiba Yoshiko looked extremely tiny before it. Master Chiba Yoshiko shrunk to Yi Chen by instinct. The scene before her was too terrifying. The monkey looked down at Yi Chen in a condescending manner. It was filled with resentment. "Brat, you ruined my plan and everything. I won't rest until you're dead." Subsequently, it lifted its foot and stomped on Yi Chen. If that stomp landed on someone, there would definitely be nothing left of them. Yi Chen grabbed Chiba Yoshiko, who was so scared that her legs were jelly, and retreated immediately. A loud bang was heard. The room they were in collapsed by the monkey's stomp, and a huge footprint was left on the ground. Thud! 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 The monkey's hatred grew after its attack failed. It ran toward Yi Chen quickly. Every step it took caused the ground to shake violently. Stand aside. Watch how I'm going to kill this B*****. Yi Chen grabbed Chiba Yoshiko and cast the gravity tactic. He then tossed her hundreds of meters away. He then lifted his head to look at the monkey before him. I don't like to look up at others, so you'd better lie down. P.S. There's still one more chapter. I'll update tonight. Chapter 593. I don't like to look up to others, so you'd better lie down. Yi Chen smiled in disdain when he saw the monkey, who had expanded, stomping on his head again. He stretched his fist out and held the air lightly. His aura changed suddenly. Divine Punch created in 33 days. 6 style, Quake Hammer. As soon as he said that, a terrifying force spread out with him as the center, extending for 1,000 meters. It was as if space had been shaken by his hand. Bang! The surrounding buildings froze for a few seconds before turning into dust. This caused the monkey and him to be completely exposed to the world. Countless people who had been alarmed by the previous tremor and had yet to figure out what was going on were instantly stunned when they saw this scene. Oh my God, what's that? What a huge gorilla! That's not a gorilla. It looks a little like a monkey. God, how can there be such a big monkey? Could it be the great sage, heaven's equal in Chinese mythology? Divine Monkey, quick, kneel and kowtow to the Divine Monkey. That young man is going to be stomped to death by the monkey. At that moment, countless people stared blankly at Yi Chen and the monkey. All sorts of exclamations came out of their mouth. The timid people were so scared that they knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the monkey. Some bold people took out their phones to film. Yi Chen ignored all of that. Instead, he threw a simple punch. There were no fancy movements, but it made the hair on the monkey that was stepping on him stand on end. Oh no! The monkey's body stiffened, and a deep sense of horror flashed in its eyes. It subconsciously wanted to retreat. Although it had fallen into a berserk state, it still retained a hint of rationality. A strong sense of danger surged inside of it under Yi Chen's punch. I told you, after your innate divinity lost its effect on me, you're a tiger without teeth. Yi Chen scoffed coldly. He was like an arrow that had been pulled to its limit. Subsequently, he shot into the air abruptly. His body turned into afterimages as he charged at the monkey. Everyone on the ground was in an uproar, and their jaws almost dropped to the ground. That young man can fly? Duck, are you sure he's not filming a sci-fi movie? Is he filming The Rise of the Planet or Tarzan of the Apes? Roar! As an incomparably shrill scream rang out, countless people felt a piercing pain in their eardrums. They hurriedly and subconsciously covered their ears with their hands, but even so, their ears still rang. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Yi Chen punched the monkey's soul hard. As the monkey let out a blood-curdling scream, one of its legs exploded on the spot, which then caused a series of reactions. The other leg, thigh, abdomen, chest, and head all exploded one after another. Flames burst out in the air, causing many people to close their eyes immediately. Chiba Yoshiko was shocked. Master killed Lord Soul Eater with one punch? Too strong. If one were to take a closer look, they would discover that there was a green stream of air within the ball of flames that was rapidly shooting towards the horizon. However, its speed was getting slower and slower, and there were traces of blood dripping down from time to time. He's still alive? Naturally, Yi Chen saw that. Surprise flashed across his face. Subsequently, he turned into a few afterimages and chased after them without hesitation. His idea was simple. An existence like the Weeping Soul Beast was too heaven-defying on Earth. If he could not subdue it, he would destroy it. The reason why he was not afraid of the Weeping Soul Beast's soul-devouring power was mainly because after he broke through to foundation building, his divine consciousness had already increased by several times. The Weeping Soul Beast's soul-devouring power did not affect him much. However, if it were anyone else, it would be a disaster. The man and the beast chased each other from Miami City to Kagoshima. After crossing hundreds of kilometers, Yi Chen finally found the monkey's footprints at a cave entrance in Kagoshima. Yi Chen stood at the entrance of the cave. After his divine consciousness enveloped the cave, he realized that the monkey was less than 10 meters away from him. However, it was lying on the ground, panting heavily. Scarlet blood kept flowing from the bottom of its left foot, and its body had once again grown to 40 to 50 centimeters tall. "I know you're here." He was not in a hurry to enter. Instead, he placed his hands behind his back and shook his head. "I'll give you a chance now. Submit or die." Squeak, squeak, squeak. When the monkey in the cave heard what he said, its eyes were replaced by scarlet again. It subconsciously wanted to get up, but its body fell to the ground again. Its breathing became weaker and weaker, and its eyes began to dim. Clearly, it was on the verge of death. It would rather die than go out. Its consciousness gradually became blurry. It recalled itself more than 100 years ago. It woke up one night in a Japanese nature park. It was ostracized because its size and appearance were different from other monkeys. The Monkey King chased it away, and the other monkeys threw stones at it. It could only leave the park and wander to a human gathering place. In the end, it realized that humans were even more despicable than the previous monkeys. It could only hide in the garbage dump, and only dared to sneak out at night to pick up some rotten leaves and moldy fruits to eat. Even so, it was still chased by wild dogs. Winter came. It was cold and hungry, shivering in a ball of torn cotton in the garbage dump. An old scavenger found it when he opened the garbage dump. The old scavenger was not the first person it saw, but he was the first person it did not sense any hostility from. The old scavenger brought it home. It was a dirty and smelly shantytown. The old scavenger fed it some rice paste and placed it by the fire. Only then did it survive. After coming back to life, it had a new understanding of humans. After that, a scene appeared on the streets of Japan. An old scavenger carried a bamboo basket on his back and held a metal hook in his hand. He went to various garbage dumps, and there was a green monkey sitting in the bamboo basket. The monkey was very smart. After following the old scavenger for a few days, it learned how to classify the garbage, which was useful to the old scavenger, and which was useless. Therefore, every time the old scavenger was sick at home and had no food to eat, the monkey would sneak out at night to pick up garbage, or run to the kitchen of a rich family to steal some food, or even run to the clinic to steal medicine. The old scavenger raised the monkey as his son. The monkey did not know what kind of feelings it had for the old scavenger. Savior? Kindred? Father? It did not know anything. It only knew that the old scavenger treated it well. One day, the old scavenger was seriously ill and was getting thinner. The monkey heard from the doctor who came to see him that he needed an extremely precious medicinal herb. This herb could only be found in the county. Therefore, the monkey secretly rushed to the county in the middle of the night. Relying on its memory, it finally arrived at the county with great difficulty and stole the herb. When it returned to the old scavenger's house, it found that the old scavenger was gone. According to the neighbors, it turned out that the old man's son, who had not seen him for a long time, heard that his father was seriously ill, so he returned home early. There was a rumor that the house was going to be demolished, but the old man refused. In order to covet the demolition money, the old scavenger's son carried his seriously ill father up the mountain, intending to dump him in the mountains. This kind of custom was common in Japan at that time. That was the first time the monkey was furious. It chased into the mountains, and when it found the old scavenger had already been dismembered by wild beasts. It turned out that the old scavenger's son had encountered wild beasts while carrying the old scavenger into the mountains. In his fear, the old scavenger's son had abandoned the old scavenger on the road and fled down the mountain in a panic. The monkey had never felt so angry before. It vaguely felt that something had happened to its body, but it did not care. It went down the mountain to find the old scavenger's son. In its rage, the monkey felt that its nostrils were extremely itchy and blocked, making it difficult to breathe. After it sneezed, it swallowed the old scavenger's son's soul. That was the monkey's first time devouring a soul. After that, it was as if the door to a new world had been opened. Be it humans, ghosts, or demons, none of them could resist it. The old scavenger's death completely buried the monkey's innocence, and it also planted a seed of hatred in its heart. After that, it relied on its ignorant consciousness to become the god of the Hitamoto clan. It was respected by every generation of the Hitamoto clan's master, and the Hitamoto clan would offer many virgins for it to devour every year. In its eyes, humans were not even enemies. At most, they were food. As it thought about it, the monkey's consciousness became weaker and weaker. The color in its eyes became dimmer and dimmer. Finally, it revealed an expression of relief and slowly closed its eyes. Yi Chen entered the cave in a flash after noticing that. He shook his head and sighed softly as he sensed the life force on its body getting weaker and weaker. You'd rather die from serious injuries than submit to me? In the next moment, 3 medicinal pills appeared in his hand. He melted the medicinal pills into the monkey's abdomen, and then channeled a large amount of spiritual energy into its body. The monkey's life force that was gradually dissipating showed signs of slowing down. In the end, the life force slowly grew, and its vital signs began to return to normal. However, a strange scene appeared. The monkey's body shrank again, from 50 centimeters to 40 centimeters, then to 30 centimeters. In the end, it shrank to over 10 centimeters at a speed visible to the naked eye. It looked like it was only the size of an adult's palm, as if it could be held in one hand. The monkey opened its eyes. Yi Chen was prepared for it to attack him. However, confusion flashed through the monkey's eyes the moment it saw him. Subsequently, it leaped onto his palm with a whoosh and rubbed its furry head against Yi Chen's sleeve. It was very intimate. It did not look like it was treating an enemy at all. Chapter 594. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The monkey that was only the size of a palm jumped up and down on his palm. Its eyes kept rolling around, and it sniffed Yi Chen's fingertips from time to time. Yi Chen did not manage to react to the sudden scene. He thought that even if he saved the monkey would not accept his kindness. It might even attack him. However, the little monkey before him did not look like it was going to attack him at all. Instead, its actions looked like it was trying to please him. At that moment, Yi Chen found it strange. He stared at the monkey in silence and tried to communicate with the beast with his divine consciousness. Based on the reaction from his divine consciousness, the beast did not have any hostility towards him. Instead, it was more friendly. It was like a new life that had just been born. It was curious about everything and was very close to him. However, he was sure that the monkey had become smaller and weaker. It was much weaker than before. The monkey moved around in his palm and licked its paws. Then, with a whoosh, it leaped onto his shoulder and fell into a deep sleep, just like a koala. The moment the monkey died, he rushed in and realized that the monkey's consciousness was gone. However, the life force in its body had yet to dissipate. That was why he tried to use medicinal pills to save it. Unexpectedly, it led to a series of changes. Could it be because of the second rebirth? A hint of speculation appeared in Yi Chen's eyes. The monkey forcefully devoured the souls of close to 100 people earlier because it wanted to fight to the death with me. Then, it suffered a backlash and its original consciousness was destroyed? So a new consciousness was born in its body? He suspected that the monkey was pretending to be stupid to deceive him. However, under his divine consciousness, the monkey could not be flawless. Forget it. You're no match for me even when you're at your peak, let alone when you're so weak now. How much can you do? He took one last look at the monkey that had fallen asleep on his shoulder and shook his head secretly before walking out of the cave. At the same time, a piece of shocking news spread throughout Japan. One of the 4 yin-yang master clans, the Hitamoto clan, had been destroyed. From the head of the Hitamoto clan, Hitamoto Chiho, to the 3 guardian elders of the Hitamoto clan, they had all died. Even the god that the Hitamoto clan had consecrated had been blown up with a single punch. The impact of this news was not inferior to the 2 atomic bombs back then. As soon as it spread, it caused a commotion in the entire Japanese cultivation world. Everyone subconsciously did not believe it. One must know that the Hitamoto clan was one of the only 4 yin-yang master clans in Japan. Just Hitamoto Chiho, the head of the clan, was a powerhouse in the world. Moreover, there were 3 guardian elders under him. All 3 of them were famous powerhouses. If they were released, they would be able to sweep through Japan. Apart from that, there was also an ancient-level Shikigami. This Shikigami had existed since the establishment of the Hitamoto clan. During that time, countless existences like Hitamoto Chiho had entered the cycle of life and death. However, spirit-branded Shikigami were like lofty gods that existed forever. They were immortal and indestructible. How could it be easy to kill them? All of a sudden, the entire Japan was in an uproar. Countless people in the cultivation world were asking about the truth of the matter. When they watched the battle video of the Hitamoto clan, they were shocked. Everyone was stunned. The Hitamoto clan, one of the 4 yin-yang master clans, was destroyed by a young man with his bare hands. Looking at the godlike young man in the video, the entire Japanese cultivation world fell silent. They felt that their hearts were trembling, and they could not accept the reality before their eyes. In a shrine in Hiroshima, 2 green eyes suddenly bloomed in the endless black fog. They were the size of lanterns. As the eyes twitched strangely, a muffled voice sounded. "That guy from the Hitamoto clan is dead? Who has such ability? Yagyu Ida from the Yagyu family? Or did the other 2 guys make a move?" The voice was mixed with shock and disbelief. At the next moment, there was a tremor in the endless black fog. Then, an ancient tavern slowly floated over from the darkness. There were 2 lanterns hanging on the door of the tavern. As the tavern floated, the lanterns swayed like a pair of eyes. "Old friend," an extremely hoarse voice slowly came from the tavern, "you don't have to guess anymore. I've received news that the one from the Hitamoto clan died in the hands of a Chinese man." The door of the tavern opened and closed, followed by a person's mouth. "Chinese man." The eyes in the black fog flickered violently a few times. Could it be the #1 person in China, Mad Southern Yi, who was in the limelight in China a few days ago? "That's right, it's him." The hoarse voice from before said, "Mad Southern Yi and the traitor of the Chiba family, Chiba Yoshiko, are together. I suspect that Mad Southern Yi is here for the foreign fragment. After the one from the Hitamoto clan dies, it'll be our turn next." "He's here for the foreign fragment?" The eyes in the black fog were shocked at first, then they snorted and said, "That useless Wisdom King has been suppressing the foreign fragment for so long, but he hasn't made any progress at all. Wisdom King has sent news that more than half of the progress has been made. He wants us to stall for time no matter what. It's best if we kill Mad Southern Yi to prevent disturbing him." The voice in the tavern seemed to be afraid as he said, "The death of the one from the Hitamoto clan shows that Mad Southern Yi's combat power is not inferior to the 3 of us. Therefore, my opinion is that the 3 of us should attack together. That way we can completely kill this person. I suggest that Sword Saint Yagyu Ida join us. If the 4 experts attack together, Mad Southern Yi will definitely die. We can't let this person touch the foreign fragment." At the same time, in a villa in Tokyo, the current head of the Yagyu family, Yagyu Shingen, looked at the video in front of him with an extremely gloomy gaze. "Did this person kill Teiken?" It's him. Yagyu Akai, who was at the side, nodded respectfully. Yagyu Shingen gripped the hilt of his sword tightly with both hands, his expression shocked and furious. "He can even destroy the Hitamoto clan. No wonder he dared to kill Teiken." Then, he asked again, "Did you find out this person's identity?" Just as Yagyu Akai was about to speak, he suddenly heard a noise behind him. He subconsciously turned around and saw a black python crawling in from the window. "Greetings, Master Priest." Everyone, including Yagyu Shinjen, stood up. "You guys don't have to investigate anymore." The black python stuck out its scarlet tongue and said in human language, "This person's name is Mad Southern Yi. He's the new #1 in China." As soon as it said that, everyone was shocked, especially Yagyu Shinjen. He could not help but suck in a breath of cold air and said, "#1 in China? How could it be him?" Chapter 595. The Black Python threw another bombshell. Under the orders of the Abe family's master, Sword Saint Yagyu Ida is ordered to fight Mad Southern Yi to restore the dignity of Japan. What? Yagyu Shinjen was shocked. He could not hide the shock on his face. "Lord Priest, my father has already hidden his sword and no longer cares about the cultivation world. Sword Saint Yagyu Ida has hidden his sword for decades. This concerns the reputation of Japan. It's time to test Mad Southern Yi's might. This is not only the order of the Abe family, but also the orders of the other two Yin-Yang master families." The black python's tone was firm and unquestionable. "Yes." Hearing that, Yagyu Shinjen's heart was in turmoil again. He could only reluctantly agree. Mount Fuji, the highest peak in Japan, was close to 4,000 meters above sea level. In the eyes of the Japanese, it was the pilgrimage place with the longest history. It was also the spiritual belief of the Japanese to climb to the peak of the mountain. Winter was approaching. At that moment, Mount Fuji was covered in snow in advance. It was also the season for cherry blossoms to bloom. One by one, they filled the branches, competing for beauty. From afar, the faint pink cherry blossoms looked like pink clouds floating on Mount Fuji, dazzling countless tourists who came to admire it. They sighed that their trip was not in vain. On the highest peak of Mount Fuji, the Sword Peak, as it was the highest above sea level, the Sword Peak was already covered in ice and snow. In such bad weather, very few people came. Even birds did not dare to cross it casually. At that moment, in a basin of ice on the Sword Peak, the basin was like a huge hole. It was bottomless, but it emitted a bone-piercing chill. There were countless icicles standing upside down around it, flickering with cold gleams. A helicopter leaped onto the Sword Peak with great difficulty. When the helicopter was 20 meters away from the ground, a figure shot down from below. Yagyu Shinjen held a wine gourd in his hand. He did not stay for long. Instead, he walked straight to the side of the big hole in the ice basin. He bowed slightly and said respectfully, "Father, I'm here." As his voice fell, a low roar was suddenly emitted from the large hole in the ice layer in front of him. It was as if a wild beast was crazily leaping up from within, causing the ice layer above to tremble. Yagyu Shinjen's expression changed. This was because he actually felt an extremely scorching heat wave shooting out from the cave. This heat wave rushed straight to the ground, and it was enough to melt steel. However, what was strange was that even under such a high temperature, the layer of ice did not show any signs of melting. Yagyu Shinjen took a few steps back and took a deep breath. Then, he threw the wine gourd in his hand into the ice cave. However, the wine gourd did not fall in at all. Instead, it hung in the air, as if there was an invisible force holding it back. Ka-ka-ka, with a crisp sound, countless cracks appeared on the surface of the gourd suspended in the air. The wine inside poured out and fell into the ice cave. In such cold weather, an ordinary person's breath would freeze. However, the wine in the gourd was boiling in an extremely abnormal manner, emitting waves of hot air and a rich wine fragrance. After the wine in the gourd dripped into the ice cave, an incomparably aged voice was transmitted from the ice cave. "What's the matter?" This voice seemed to be impatient, but it also seemed to be pleased. Yagyu Shinjen subconsciously tensed his body. "Father, Taken is dead." The ice cave fell silent. After a few seconds he said faintly, "I already know. You can go back." "Father." Yagyu Shingen braced himself and said, Taken died in the hands of the China number 1, Mad Southern Yi. I'm useless, so I can only ask you to avenge Taken. I've already hidden my sword. The ice cave continued to emit hot air, but the hot air was intermittent, as if the person below was not in a calm state of mind. China's Mad Southern Yi killed his way into Japan. He first destroyed the Chiba family, then the Hitamoto clan. He treated the Japanese cultivation world as nothing. Yagyu Shingen told him everything that had happened. The Abe family sent an order for father to challenge Mad Southern Yi to restore the dignity of Japan. That's what the parliament wants too. At the next moment, the ice in the basin melted in an instant, as if a glacier had collapsed. Yagyu Shingen retreated in shock. When he looked again, he saw a ray of fire soaring into the sky like a fire dragon. An old man slowly walked out from the fire. The old man had silver hair, and he looked even younger than Yagyu Shingen. As the old man landed on the ground, 2 white streams spewed out from his nose. The white streams were actually wrapped in flames. If outsiders saw him, they would be shocked to discover that he was Yagyu Ida from the Yagyu family, the legend of Japan, and the only sword saint in Japan in 100 years. Back then, he had defeated 3 world-class giants with a single sword strike. Then, he hid his sword and lived in seclusion. Although he had faded from everyone's sight all these years, his reputation had not diminished. Yagyu Shingen's pupils constricted when he saw that. He hurriedly went forward to congratulate him. Congratulations, father! What's there to congratulate? Yagyu Ida turned around and looked at the layer of ice behind him. His voice was extremely hoarse, as if he had not spoken for a long time. I've hidden my sword and lived in seclusion here for decades to pursue the extreme of power. I've tried to fuse 2 completely different powers, but unfortunately, I'm still a step away. As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed at the ice and snow on the ground. An ice ball slowly condensed in his hand. If one looked closely, they would realize that there was a ball of blue demonic fire sealed in the ice ball. A few seconds later, the ice ball began to melt slowly. Clearly, it could not resist the blue flame that was sealed in it. Ice and fire can't coexist after all. Looks like it's fate. Yagyu Ida let out a long sigh and stopped dwelling on it. Instead, he turned to look at Yagyu Shingen. Tell me what happened again. After listening, he suddenly sneered and said, The so-called 4 Yin-Yang master clans have become more and more cunning in recent years, and they're becoming more and more afraid of death. They actually have to involve me to deal with a mere number 1 person in China. Father, what do you mean? Yagyu Shingen vaguely guessed something. The 3 old monsters hiding in the shrine have a sense of danger, and they're afraid of death. Therefore, they can only force me to come out of seclusion and join forces with them to deal with Mad Southern Yi. Yagyu Ida shook his head and sighed, but that's not important anymore. I was born and raised in Japan. Naturally, I have the obligation to fight for Japan's reputation. As soon as he said that, he straightened his back and leaped into the air. He pressed his palm down on the entire basin as if he wanted to shatter the mountain with one palm. Old friend, it's time for you to come out. As soon as he finished speaking, a shocking sword hum came from the layer of ice. Immediately after, the entire basin shook violently and exploded. A green stream of light shot into the sky. The green stream of light circled around Yagyu Ida 3 times before landing in his hand. Surprisingly, it was a 2-foot, 7/8-inch sword. It's the heavenly sword of clouds, Father's sword. Yagyu Shingen was extremely excited. The heavenly sword of clouds was also known as the Kusanagi sword and the great blade of Dusan. According to legend, when Susanoo killed the monster Yamada no Orochi back then, he found the heavenly sword of clouds in the body of the Yamada no Orochi. The heavenly sword of clouds was known as one of the 3 divine weapons of Japan. Even the sword of the gods, the Totsuken sword, was no match for it. Old friend, you've been sealed in ice for decades. The world has long forgotten your sharpness, and they've also forgotten me, Yagyu Ida. Yagyu Ida held the hilt of the sword lightly, as if he was talking to an old friend that he had not seen for a long time. Forget it. I'll use mad southern Yez blood to sacrifice your sharpness when I come out of seclusion this time. I'll also prove to the world that my name hasn't dimmed with the passage of time. Chapter 596. Master, Lord Soul Eater. When Yi Chen returned to Amaki Mountain, Chiba Yoshiko, who had been waiting bitterly, hurried over. She asked Yi Chen if he had killed the monkey. Although she did not see the monkey escape with her own eyes, she could guess something from how Yi Chen chased after it. In the next moment, she saw the monkey sleeping on Yi Chen's shoulder. She was stunned at first. Subsequently, she seemed to have thought of something and fell to the ground in shock. She pointed at the monkey and stammered, It. Hearing the noise, the monkey, who had fallen asleep, woke up. The beast rubbed its eyes with its fingers and looked at Chiba Yoshiko. It actually leaped onto Chiba Yoshiko's head with a whoosh and scratched her hair non-stop. No one knew why. Brother Monkey felt that Chiba Yoshiko's face was very infuriating when it saw her. It could not remember who Chiba Yoshiko was, but subconsciously, it wanted to beat her up with its little fist. Master, save me, save me! Chiba Yoshiko screamed in fear. She maintained her stiff body and did not dare to move at all. She allowed the monkey to scratch her long hair until it was messy like a punk. All right, come back. At the same time that Yi Chen found it funny and infuriating, he gave the monkey an order. Brother Monkey then stopped what it was doing. However, it was still furious. It was a little indignant, but it dared not disobey Yi Chen's order. It rolled its eyes and turned around to face Chiba Yoshiko's face with its butt blurred. A foul stench spread out in all directions. Chiba Yoshiko was so disgusted that she vomited on the spot. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Brother Monkey then leaped back onto Yi Chen's shoulder. It pointed at Chiba Yoshiko, who was vomiting, and jumped up and down while scratching its ears and cheek. It seemed to be overjoyed. After Chiba Yoshiko finally recovered, she realized that something was wrong. She could not help but look at the monkey on his shoulder weakly and ask, Master, we'll talk when we get back. Yi Chen sensed that there were police cars rushing over from the foot of the mountain. Clearly, the incident at the Hitamoto courtyard had attracted the Japanese authorities' attention. When the two of them went down the mountain and passed by a meadow, they saw a horse galloping towards them at high speed. On the horse sat a young girl dressed in black. The young girl kept waving the long whip in her hand to whip the horse beneath her. The faster the horse ran, the more excited she became, and her face turned red. However, nobody knew if the horse had lost its mind. Instead of walking on the wide road, it charged at Yi Chen and Chiba Yoshiko at high speed. If an ordinary person were to be hit by it, they would be crippled even if they did not die. Be careful! The lady on the horse screamed. She tightened the reins by instinct as if she wanted to stop everything. However, the horse still charged at Yi Chen without stopping. However, a gleam of lightning flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. The horse knelt on the spot as if it had been electrocuted. Meanwhile, the woman on the horse was thrown out due to the inertia and was in pain. Let's go. Yi Chen merely glanced at the lady who was flung out coldly. He shook his head slightly and didn't stay any longer. However, he had just taken a few steps when a delicate shout came from behind him. You guys, you're not allowed to leave. Yi Chen turned his head to look and saw the lady who was thrown out earlier holding the reins and limping over. Anger was written all over her pretty face. The lady stopped Yi Chen and Chiba Yoshiko directly and said in standard Chinese, Apologize. Chinese? Yi Chen frowned slightly. What apology? You guys scared my horse and caused me to be thrown out. Don't you need to apologize? The lady rubbed her but in an indecent manner. She was so embarrassed that she wanted to die. Horse dear. Unreasonable. Chiba Yoshiko was so angry that she swore by instinct. Subsequently she said, Your horse almost hit us. Logically speaking, You should apologize to us, right? Japanese? The coldness on the lady's face grew colder when she heard the swear. So what if you're Japanese? I hate Japanese the most in my life. Since you guys are Japanese, you should apologize to me. On the other hand, Chiba Yoshiko was furious. Did the Japanese steal your rice? Seeing that you're Chinese, I won't argue with you. Yi-chin could not help but reveal a smile at the corner of his lips. Move aside. The lady placed her hands on her hips. If you don't apologize, I won't move aside. Yi-chen's gaze gradually turned sharp, causing the lady's heart to turn cold by instinct. She immediately shouted to the people around her in grievance, "Dad, someone is bullying your daughter. Are you going to do something about it?" As soon as she said that, a deep voice mixed with anger was heard, "Who dares to bully my daughter?" At the next moment, a black shadow dashed over from the forest in the distance. The person traversed the sky, and his feet did not touch the ground at all. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed hundreds of meters. An expert. Chiba Yoshiko's expression changed slightly. She could not help but approach Yi-chen by instinct. Yi-chen squinted. There's a Chinese martial Dao master in Japan too? The lady pointed at Yi-chen as if she had something to rely on and said coquettishly, "Dad, they're the ones who bullied me. They scared Xiaohong and caused her to throw me out. My butt almost broke into pieces. My good daughter, Dad will help you vent your anger." The middle-aged man looked furious. He lifted his head to look at Yi-chen and wanted to attack by instinct. However, he was stunned all of a sudden as if he had been petrified. "Dad, are you stupid?" The woman beside him hurriedly pushed him. "Shut up." He then clasped his fists at Yi-chen respectfully. "May I know if your surname is Yi, sir?" "So what if I am?" Yi-chen smiled lightly. As soon as he said that, the middle-aged man immediately bowed to him and apologized. "I am Chen Lu, the 38th generation successor of Xiangyang Xingyi Fist. Greetings, Mr. Yi." As his voice fell, the woman at the side was stunned. This was the first time she had seen her father being so respectful to a young man. One had to know that her father was not only the current leader of Xingyiquan, but also the leader of the Chinese cultivation world in Tokyo. The successor of Form and Will Fist? Surprise flashed through Yi-chen's eyes as he glanced at him. He could not believe that this person could reach the martial Dao master level even though he was practicing a normal fist technique. "That's right." Chen Lu immediately nodded and said, "I'm currently running a boxing dojo in Tokyo. Apart from making a living, I'm also promoting Chinese martial art. If my daughter doesn't understand etiquette and offended you, please forgive her." At this point, he immediately turned around to look at the woman behind him and shouted, "Xiaoxue, hurry up and apologize to Mr. Yi." "Dad, you." Xiaoxue thought she heard wrong. Chapter 597. Apologize. Chen Lu's decibel increased by a few times. Chen Shui said to Yi-chen angrily, "I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. Don't be so unruly and willful next time." Yi-chen smiled lightly and left with Chiba Yoshiko. Chen Lu maintained his bowing posture from the beginning to the end. He only stood up straight after Yi-chen left. His back was already drenched in cold sweat. Chen Shui stomped her feet in anger and complained, "Dad, have you gone senile? How dare you ask me to apologize to that guy?" "Shut up." Chen Lu immediately turned around and glared at her fiercely. He said resentfully, "Do you know who that man was? Isn't he just a gigolo who's being supported by that Japanese woman? What's the big deal?" Chen Shui pouted and mumbled, "No, he's not even a gigolo. At least he's not fair or handsome. You. Chen Lu shook his head and sighed, "I've spoiled you since you were young. That's why you're like this. Do you know who the #1 person in the Chinese cultivation world is? Of course it's Mad Southern Yi. Anyone in the Chinese cultivation world should know about him, right? Do you have to ask me that?" Chen Shui rolled her eyes at him. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly looked in the direction where Yi-chen left. Her pretty face could not help but change. "See, could it be that she said he countless times in a row as if she was stuttering. She was no longer as eloquent as before. "That's right." Chen Lu confirmed her guess and said solemnly, "That Mr. Yi just now is the legend of China, mad Southern Yi." As he spoke to this point, he looked at Chen Shui again and warned, "Only someone like Mr. Yi wouldn't bother with a junior like you. Otherwise, even 10 of me wouldn't be his match." Chen Shui's face turned pale. She was completely speechless now. As soon as Yi Chen and Chiba Yoshiko returned to the Chiba residence, 3 uninvited guests came. They claimed to be from the Abe family and asked to see Mad Southern Yi. "Oh no!" Chiba Yoshiko's expression changed drastically when she heard the news. "Master, the Abe family must be preparing to attack you after you destroyed the Hitamoto clan." The Abe clan, the Hitamoto clan, the Kusakabe clan, and the Kumo clan were the 4 great yin-yang master clans of Japan. Although they appeared to be united on the surface, they were actually divided at heart. However, if one of them was injured, the others would also feel sorry for them. "Master, this servant means that it's better if we don't meet," Chiba Yoshiko advised. "Since he took the initiative to come here, how can I not see him?" Yi Chen shook his head lightly. "Let them in." Chiba Yoshiko had no choice but to let someone lead the 3 people in. The leader was a man wearing loose training clothes and holding a katana. His name was Abe Takumi. Abe Tuajin took a good look at Yi Chen and nodded secretly. "Are you Mad Southern Yi from China? Since you know it's me, say whatever you want." Yi Chen sat on the high platform and looked at the 3 of them in a condescending manner. His words caused the 3 of them to reveal expressions of anger. Abe Tuajin lifted his hand. Subsequently, a scroll shot out of his hand and charged at Yi Chen. "We're here today for no other reason. We're here to deliver a letter of challenge." Yi Chen took the scroll and opened it. He realized that it was black paper and white word. There were 3 eye-catching words at the top: life and death agreement. "You trespassed into Japan and killed the innocent. The son of the Yagyu family's head, Yagyu Shinjen, died tragically in your hands." Abe Tuajin said righteously, "Logically speaking, your crimes should be judged by the law of Japan. However, since you're a cultivator and the Yagyu family doesn't want to escalate the matter, we've decided to settle it with you privately. Tomorrow at noon, Sword Saint Yagyu Ida invites you to fight on Mount Fuji. According to the rules of China since ancient times, you'll sign a life and death agreement." Hearing that the person who challenged him was Yagyu Ida, Chiba Yoshiko immediately said, "Master, you can't accept the challenge. Yagyu Ida is the only sword saint in the past 100 years, and he's also a legend of Japan. He's roamed Japan for the past 100 years and has never been defeated." Abe Tuajin smiled proudly when he heard that. He looked at Yi Chen in a playful manner. "Mad Southern Yi, since you're the China #1, do you dare to accept the challenge?" Initially, he thought that Yi Chen would definitely agree to his provocation. Never did he expect the letter of challenge in Yi Chen's hand to turn into countless pieces. "Mad Southern Yi, you." Abe Tuajin's expression turned cold. Yi Chen looked disdainful. "Sword Saint Yagyu Ida? I've never heard of him. Can anyone challenge me? If he really wants to take revenge for his clansmen, he can come to me directly. Why bother with a life and death agreement? I'll definitely bring your words back. I just hope that you won't regret it." Abe Tuajin sneered and left with his men. Chiba Yoshiko heaved a sigh of relief. Just when she was about to say something, she heard Yi Chen say, "Get out too. Don't come in without my orders." Chiba Yoshiko could only suppress her doubts and leave after closing the door. Yi Chen lifted his hand and set up a barrier. He got the monkey on his shoulder to land on his hand. He looked at it fixedly and said, "Tell me, where did you guys move the foreign fragment to?" With that, a medicinal pill appeared in his other hand. The medicinal pill was red and emitted a dense pill fragrance. At the same time, in the Chiba residence, Yagyu Shingen stood in the courtyard taking care of the flowers and plant. After hearing his subordinate's report, he could not help but fall silent for a few seconds. Then, he sneered and said, "You're not willing to fight? I didn't expect the China #1 to be so cowardly. Master, should we inform Master Ida to cancel the duel?" The man could not make up his mind and asked subconsciously. Cancel? An extremely strong hatred flashed across Yagyu Shingen's eyes. If we cancel it, who will avenge my son? Since he's unwilling to fight, we'll force him to fight. From now on, send everyone to suppress the Chinese cultivators who stayed behind in Japan. Destroy all the businesses run by the Chinese cultivators, including martial arts centers and medical centers. Capture them. At this point, a look of revenge and brutality appeared on his face. If the other party's powerhouses resist, kill them. The man was shocked when he heard that. Master, won't things get out of hand? You have to know that China is not to be trifled with. We're only targeting the people from the Chinese cultivation world. How big of an impact can it be? I want Mad Southern Yi to become a sinner in the eyes of the Chinese cultivation world. I'd like to see how Mad Southern Yi can sit still. The showerhead in Yagyu Shingen's hand shattered. His smile gradually turned sinister. P.S. There's still one more chapter. I'm writing it now. I won't miss it. Chapter 598. He saw Yi Chen appear. The one-armed man revealed an ecstatic expression. He immediately pulled Chen Shui and the blind man over and bowed solemnly. Xing Yi Boxing Dojo's vice master, Wu Hong, greets Mr. Yi. We're all Chinese. There's no need for such formalities. Yi Chen raised his hand and stopped him from greeting. He then noticed the empty sleeve on his left arm that was stained with blood. He frowned and said, "Who cut off your arm?" "Mr. Yi." Chen Shui said with tears streaming down her face. Uncle Wu's arm was cut off by Yagyu Shinyo from the Yagyu family. Uncle Zheng's right eye was injured by the enemy's hidden weapon. At this point, she was already sobbing. Uncle Wu didn't even have time to pick up his severed arm before he and Uncle Zheng risked their lives to protect me as we escaped. I was the one who dragged them down. Everything was caused by the Yagyu family. Not only did they capture Big Brother, but they also captured all the Chinese people in the martial arts club. The blind man gritted his teeth. The gauze over his right eye was still soaked with blood. Yagyu Shinyo, I'll remember this. Yi Chen's gaze was as cold as a knife as he said, "Guys, this happened because of me. I hereby apologize to you and all the Chinese cultivators who were implicated." With that, he flicked his finger, and 2 medicinal pills shot out from his hand toward Wu Hong and the blind man. He then said, "This is the rebirth pill. It can help both of you recover from your injuries after consuming it." Mr. Yi, this, Wu Hong and the blind man looked at the medicinal pills in their hands in shock. They had always heard that Yi Chen's combat ability was unparalleled. However, it was their first time hearing that Yi Chen knew how to refine medicinal pills. The two of them hesitated for a few seconds before sitting down. Subsequently, they opened their mouths and swallowed the medicinal pills in their hands. As soon as the medicinal pills entered their throats, they turned into pure energy that spread to their limbs and bones. The two of them felt an unbearable itch in their wounds, as if countless insects were wriggling deep within their bones. At the next moment, Wu Hong's empty sleeves began to fill up at a speed visible to the naked eye. He subconsciously took off his shirt, only to see that his severed arm had regrown. The blind man removed the gauze on his right eye and touched his recovered right eye. He was extremely excited. My eye doesn't hurt anymore. I can see." Chen Shui, who was watching from the side, was stunned. She had lived for so long, but this was the first time she had seen such a miraculous scene. "Thank you, Mr. Yi." After finally calming themselves down, the duo clasped their fists at Yi Chen. Their faces were filled with gratitude. At the same time, they were shocked. "This is what I should do." Yi Chen shook his head lightly. "Bring me to the martial arts dojo you're at now. I'll save any Chinese who are implicated by me. Mr. Yi, do you want me to report this back to China? Wu Hong hesitated for a moment and suggested, what I mean is that this isn't just about Mr. Yi alone. It's also about the dignity of the Chinese cultivation world. At this point, he cupped his fists and said, with Mr. Ye's prestige in China, you only need to raise your arm and call for help. I believe that once the 300,000 cultivators in China find out about this, they will definitely come together and trample the Japanese cultivation world. That's right. My big brother and 3 senior brothers from the same sect. If they find out what happened to us, they'll kill their way into Japan and seek justice for China. The blind man from before glared at Yi Chen. Yi Chen said nothing. He took a step forward and walked into a car slowly. His voice that was filled with killing intent came from inside. I, Mad Southern Yi, am enough in China. The Shinjuku district in Chiyoda, the capital of Japan, was one of the most famous and prosperous commercial districts in Japan. It was also the area with the most Chinese people. Countless Chinese cultivators opened schools, taught martial arts, or promoted martial arts. The dojo that Wu Hong and the other 2 set up was in this area. When Yi Chen arrived at Shinjuku under Wu Hong and the other 2's lead, and was about to head to the Chen Xingyi boxing dojo, he looked deep into the alley beside him. He sensed the aura of someone fighting. After extending his divine consciousness, he saw more than 10 people fighting in the depths of the alley. An old man was leading 2 young men and a young woman. They were surrounded by more than 10 people, and their faces were filled with despair. Yi Chen found the old man among them rather familiar. Wu Hong asked when he saw him stop, Mr. Yi, what's wrong? Nothing, I met an acquaintance. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. He took a step forward in a flash and charged toward the battle at lightning speed. Deep in the alley, Wu Changchun subconsciously protected the 2 disciples behind him when he saw that the 3 of them were tightly surrounded. His heart was filled with despair and anger. Half a year ago, he had accidentally offended a big shot in Tianan, China. In order to prevent revenge, he had no choice but to cross the ocean to seek refuge in Japan. He also opened a Wing Chun dojo to make a living. For the past half a year, the dojo had been running well. Who would have thought that something would happen today? Countless Japanese would go door to seal off Chinese businesses and even arrest Chinese cultivators on the street. When he saw that something was wrong, he led his 2 disciples and ran away. He did not expect to be stopped here. Although the other party only wanted him to surrender and would not harm his life, Wu Changchun did not dare to agree. That was because on the way to escape, he had been severely injured. Not only was he severely injured on the way to escape, but he had also witnessed many Chinese cultivators being tortured. There was no lack of women among them, and there happened to be a beautiful female disciple behind him who had always been extremely filial. Just as he was thinking, a man in a suit among the dozen or so Japanese said with an evil smile, Chinese, I'll say it one last time. You have nowhere to run. If you don't want to die, you'd better surrender. As he said that, his gaze was fixed on the female disciple behind Wu Changchun. He did not hide the lust in his eyes at all. As soon as he said that, the young man and woman behind Wu Changchun were so scared that they immediately cried out and pulled Wu Changchun back. Master, Wu Changchun smiled bitterly as a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. Chinese martial artists will only die standing, not kneel to live. Come on, I, your grandpa Wu, will drag a few of you down with me even if I have to die. Kill him. The man in the suit was enraged. Immediately, 3 Japanese men drew their swords and slashed at Wu Changchun. The 3 of them had presumptuous smiles on their faces at the same time, like cats playing with mice. At this moment, a strong gust of wind suddenly swept over from afar. The strong gust of wind contained an extremely terrifying aura. The 3 Japanese men who slashed at Wu Changchun earlier immediately froze, as if they had been petrified. Bang! Before the crowd could react, the three of them exploded at the same time, including the samurai swords in their hands. At the next moment, a skinny man in black attire walked over with the wind. With a few steps, he crossed hundreds of meters and appeared before everyone. Chapter 599. Facing Yi Chen's anger, fear flashed through Yamaguchi Aoki's eyes, but he still said stubbornly, "Let me tell you, if you dare to move, I'll kill one person until I kill them all." At the next moment, immediately, a member of the Yamaguchi group walked over and beat the old Song Jifeng to his knees. The muzzle of the gun was aimed at his head. "Old Song! Master! Master Song!" Seeing this scene, the expressions of everyone in the prison changed, and their eyes became bloodshot again. If looks could kill, Yamaguchi Aoki and the others would have died countless times over. "Mad Southern Yi, did you see that?" Yamaguchi Aoki sneered. "As long as you don't move, he won't die." Yi Chen's eyes focused. Just when he was about to say something, he heard Song Jifeng, who was kneeling on the ground, laugh out loud. "I'm a sinner. I've always said that I kneel to the heavens, kneel to the earth, and kneel to my parents. But now I'm kneeling before my enemies. These enemies have never knelt to China for the sins they committed back then. I'm a sinner of China." Song Jifeng was crying and laughing at the same time. Tears streamed down his face. "How can a sinner like me continue to live in this world?" At the next moment, he suddenly reached out and grabbed the gun in front of him. The man with the gun thought he was going to grab the gun and subconsciously pulled the trigger. He didn't expect Song Jifeng's hand to hold the trigger tightly. Bang! A gunshot was heard. Song Jifeng's body fell heavily to the ground. A bloody hole the size of a thumb appeared on his forehead, and blood kept spurting out. The entire process was extremely fast. By the time everyone reacted, they saw a corpse lying in a pool of blood. The wounds on the corpse were shocking. "Old Song! Master! Master Song!" All the Chinese people in the prison, led by Meng Zixiang, stood up. They looked extremely sorrowful, and many of them even cried on the spot. "Baka!" Yamaguchi Aoki was also shocked. He subconsciously slapped the person who fired the gun. "Baka, who told you to shoot?" "I didn't shoot, He fired himself." The gun in the man's hand immediately fell to the ground. He was terrified. At that moment, Yamaguchi Aoki's heart sank completely. He did not plan to kill Song Jifeng. He merely wanted to use Song Jifeng and the rest to threaten Yi Chen. Now that Song Jifeng was dead, did that not mean, thinking of this, he hurriedly turned around to look at the surveillance screen. However, he realized that Yi Chen was nowhere to be seen. It was as if he had suddenly disappeared. It was very strange. Yamaguchi Aoki hurriedly asked the person beside him, "Where is he?" "I don't know. He was here just now, but in the blink of an eye, he disappeared." The person in charge of monitoring stuttered. "Pull up all the surveillance footage for me. We must find him, immediately." Yamaguchi Aoki resisted the urge to shoot him. However, what terrified him was that Yi Chen was nowhere to be seen even after all the surveillance cameras outside the Yamaguchi-gumi were pulled out. "Mad Southern Yi, get out here right now." Yamaguchi Aoki's expression changed. He kept shouting at the loudspeaker, "Get out here right now, or I'll kill everyone." The unknown was the scariest. Yi Chen had suddenly disappeared. Who knew if he had left or if he had used some method to sneak in? However, no matter how he shouted, he still could not get any response from Yi Chen. In the end, he was going crazy. "Mad Southern Yi, get out here. I'm begging you." "As you wish." A ghostly voice rang in his ears, causing the hair on his body to stand on end. He looked around as if he had seen a ghost. "Mad Southern Yi, where are you?" He was already like that, let alone the other hundreds of people. However, to their disappointment, there was no sign of Yi Chen in the entire basement. At the next moment, a sword gleam that was over 30 meters long appeared out of nowhere and slashed at the hundreds of members of the Yamaguchi-gumi who were holding guns. Many of them were torn into pieces by the whistling sword chi on the spot. They did not even have the time to scream. More than half of them were killed or injured with a single strike, leaving only dozens of them. From the beginning to the end, they did not even see Yi Chen. Yamaguchi Aoki's expression changed drastically as he shouted sternly, "Everyone, get ready. Kill everyone in the prison. I don't believe that he dares to play tricks on us." The remaining dozens of people raised their guns and aimed at the prison. They pulled the triggers at the same time, and bullets rained down on the prison. At that moment, the people in the prison closed their eyes subconsciously. Meng Zixiang laughed out loud. "Old song, slow down on the road to hell. I'm coming for you." Madness flashed through Yamaguchi Aoki's eyes. Die, let's die together." He knew that ever since Yi Chen broke through their surveillance and suddenly appeared here, things were no longer under his control. However, a strange scene appeared. Countless bullets suddenly stopped just as they were about to reach the steel prison, as if they had been grabbed by an invisible hand and stopped moving. The smile on Yamaguchi Aoki's face froze. His eyes were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Even the dozens of people who fired were stunned. When they came back to their senses, they fired a few more shots. The bullets that flew out also stopped when they were about to reach the steel prison. This, Meng Zixiang and the rest in the prison were stunned. They were so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell out. It was the first time they had seen such a scene in their lives. At that moment, the space in front of the prison fluctuated like ripples in a lake. A thin figure dressed in black martial arts attire slowly appeared. "Mad Southern Yi." Yamaguchi Aoki retreated and cried out in shock. When the people in the prison saw the figure that suddenly appeared in front of them, they were stunned at first. Then, they shouted in unison with incomparable enthusiasm, "Mr. Yi!" They did not expect Yi Chen to be able to come to the basement without anyone knowing under the strict lockdown and surveillance of the Yamaguchi-gumi. "Everyone!" Yi Chen turned around slowly. His guilty gaze swept across every face and every pair of eyes in the prison. "I've implicated all of you. I apologize to all of you." After saying that, he bowed to everyone heavily. Then, he walked to the side and looked at Song Jifeng's corpse. He shook his head and sighed. What a staunch old man! In the beginning, he was unwilling to use the invisibility spell. Although this spell was nothing in the cultivation world, it was too shocking in the secular world. If he were to expose it easily, it would easily cause unnecessary trouble. He did not expect it to be his hesitation. It caused Song Jifeng's death. Chapter 600. He slowly turned around to look at Yamaguchi Aoki. "I've said it before. If even a single hair on my people is harmed, I'll kill your entire family. If one of my people dies in your hands, I'll destroy your Yamaguchi-gumi and erase your name from this world." "You!" Yamaguchi Aoki retreated continuously. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw the bullets that had stopped in the air move, but they all flew back in unison. The remaining dozens of Yamaguchi-gumi members in the basement died on the spot. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Yamaguchi Aoki retreated step by step. He was afraid. He was really afraid. He did not expect Yi Chen to be more powerful than the rumors said. He could break through the layers of lockdown and surveillance equipment outside the Yamaguchi-gumi without anyone noticing and appear before them. He did not expect Yi Chen to be able to stop thousands of bullets and kill hundreds of people in the blink of an eye. Devil. He was a devil who had returned from hell. At this moment, Yamaguchi Aoki's shock had reached its peak. Such a person was not even afraid of bullet. Who in the world could deal with him? Sword Saint Yagyu Ida? No. He could not. Perhaps only a missile from the Congress could destroy him. If he was given another chance, he would not have done what he did earlier, nor would he have offended Yi Chen. "Mad Southern Yi, let me go, please." Thinking to this point, Yamaguchi Aoki took a deep breath in and suppressed the fear in him. All of this was ordered by the Yagyu family. I was just following orders. As long as you let me go, from now on, I am willing to be your dog. The entire Yamaguchi-gumi will be loyal to you. His strong desire to live drove him to throw out all sorts of conditions to beg for mercy in an attempt to move Yi Chen and save his life. However, Yi Chen's gaze was extremely cold from the beginning to the end. Kneel. Plop. Yamaguchi Aoki knelt before Yi Chen without thinking. Yi Chen lifted his hand and grabbed him. He lifted him into the air and threw him out of the prison. I want you to kneel to them. Bang. Yamaguchi Aoki, who was in the air, fell from his kneeling position. His knees landed heavily on the ground, followed by the sound of his joints cracking. His knees shattered on the spot. Ah! Yamaguchi Aoki was in excruciating pain. Kowtow and apologize. Yi Chen's expression remained unchanged as he took a step forward. The pressure on his body completely burst out. Bang! Yamaguchi Aoki's forehead slammed heavily into the ground. The floor cracked on the spot, and his forehead was already covered in blood. Kill me, kill me! Yamaguchi Aoki screamed. Mad Southern Yi, I'm begging you. Kill me, kill me. I'm in so much pain. This is just the beginning. Yi Chen walked toward him step by step. I won't kill you now because I said that I'll kill your entire family. I said that I'll destroy the Yamaguchi-gumi, so I'll destroy the Yamaguchi-gumi. I want you to witness everything with your own eyes. His voice fell. He suddenly waved his hand, and the steel pillars on the tens of cages collapsed in unison. At the same time, over 100 rays of light fell into the hands of everyone. Meng Zixiang, who had just escaped, stared blankly at the red medicinal pill in his hand. His face was filled with confusion. Mr. Yi, what's this? This is the body-strengthening pill that I refined. It can help everyone resolve the poison and injuries in their bodies. Yi Chen said slowly. Back then, he had refined many low-grade body-strengthening pills in one go to help his daughter train her body. He still had some left. When everyone consumed the medicinal pill and felt the changes in their bodies, they cupped their fists at Yi Chen and said, Thank you, Mr. Yi. You guys were implicated because of me. This is what I should do. There's no need to thank me. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. In the end, his gaze landed on Song Jifeng's corpse. He blamed himself. What a pity, old Song. Even I can't change my fate. Meng Zixiang's expression was filled with grief. I've known old Song for 20 years. I know that he has a strong personality, but I didn't expect him to be so strong. Mr. Yi, you don't have to blame yourself too much. A middle-aged man with strong arms walked out from the side while holding the hand of a dignified child. He said with tears in his eyes, I'm Song Hu. My father went to the battlefield in his early years. He would rather die than bend. He abhors evil and regards the dignity of the country above everything else. He would rather die than damage the honor of a soldier. That's right. Master Song has been living in Japan ever since he retired. He has said more than once that if the Japanese still have ulterior motives and if the country still needs him, he's willing to fight 1,000,000 soldiers with his broken body. Another man had a face full of admiration. Perhaps people who were born in the new era did not understand patriotism because they had never experienced it. However, for the older generation, patriotism was deeply rooted in their bones. No matter what, I owe old Song my life. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. He only noticed the dignified boy who was about 10 years old next to Song Hu. He could not help but ask, Is this old Song's grandson? The little boy hid behind Song Hu in fear when he saw him looking over. He peeked his head out secretly to look at Yi Chen. Mr. Yi, this is my son, Song Yang. Song Hu immediately pulled the little boy out with a loving expression. My father loved him the most when he was alive. Yi Chen said while smiling, Are you willing to be my disciple? Everyone was shocked when they heard that. Clearly, they did not expect Yi Chen to say something like that all of a sudden. After all, as the China #1, how could he take in disciples so easily? At that moment, countless envious gazes were cast at Song Yang and his son. If they were the disciples of the China #1, they would wake up laughing even in their dreams. Song, who was stunned at first, but when he snapped back to his senses, he said excitedly, "Song Yang, greet master." However, Song Yang looked at Yi Chen calmly. "If I'm your disciple, can I avenge my grandfather?" "Yes." Yi Chen smiled. "Are you willing?" "If that's the case, I'm willing." Song Yang walked to Yi Chen immediately and knelt respectfully. He said in a childish manner, "Song Yang greets master. From now on, you're my 6th disciple." Yi Chen extended his hand and helped him up. He said while smiling, "Join my sect. I'll give you the Buddhist name Chia. From now on, you'll be called Song Chia." It was the first time he had given someone a Buddhist name. Even the previous disciples had never had one. It was because the name Song Yang sounded like a coward. However, he sighed softly in his heart. When he helped Song Yang up earlier, he had checked his spiritual root and found that it was a 5-element spiritual root. Such aptitude was considered the lowest in the cultivation world. It was very difficult for him to achieve anything on the path of immortality. However, old Song had died because of him. If he took Song Yang as his disciple, it would be enough to ensure the Song family's prosperity for 100 years. Song Chia greets master. The little boy kowtowed a few times respectfully, as if he was excited that he had a new name. What Yi Chen did not know was that the disciple he had casually taken in and did not think highly of would become the 7-Night Demon King, who was famous in the cultivation world in the future. Song Hu, who was at the side, recalled something sad. He choked and said, "Mr. Yi, there are more than 1,000 cultivators in Japan, but there are only a few hundred of them here. In other words, half of them are still missing." "That's right," Meng Zixiang continued, "we've been doing our part in Japan for so many years, but the Japanese have suppressed us for no reason, causing the deaths of some of our fellow cultivators. Even the master of the Form Intention Boxing Dojo, Chun Lu, was captured by the Yagyu family. Such actions disregard the dignity of China and treat the 300,000 cultivators of China as heir." At this point, he clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes were filled with hatred. "Therefore, we are irreconcilable with the Yamaguchi-gumi and the Yagyu family. Here, I would like to speak to Mr. Yi on behalf of all the Chinese cultivators in Japan." At the next moment, he knelt on one knee before Yi Chen on the spot. His eyes were filled with tears on his rough face. "Mr. Yi, please kill the Yamaguchi-gumi and the Yagyu family to strengthen our country. Mr. Yi, please kill the Yamaguchi-gumi and the Yagyu family to strengthen our country." Song Hu knelt on one knee, hot tears rolling down his cheeks. Bang bang bang. "Mr. Yi, please strengthen our country." The hundreds of people present knelt before Yi Chen at that moment. Their faces and eyes were filled with hatred. "Mr. Yi, please strengthen our country. Mr. Yi, please strengthen our country." The neat and powerful, hoarse and exhausted shouts were like sharp blades stabbing into Yi Chen's heart. Yi Chen was silent. He looked at the bloodshot faces quietly and their eyes that were filled with hope. At this moment, he felt a hint of bitterness and pain in his heart. He took a deep breath in and bowed to everyone. "Everyone, I hereby promise that I will kill the Yamaguchi-gumi and the Yagyu family to defend the dignity of our country. I will cut off all the cherry blossoms on Mount Fuji to pay tribute to the dead. P.S. I've updated 3 times at the same time, so I'm a little late. Sorry for the long wait. Today's update is over. Please give me monthly votes and recommendation votes." Chapter 601. Everyone, I promise that I will kill the Yamaguchi-gumi and the Yagyu family to defend China's dignity. I will kill all the cherry blossoms on Mount Fuji to pay tribute to the dead. As Yi Chen's powerful words fell, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. Mad Southern Yi! Mad Southern Yi! Mad Southern Yi! The blood in the bodies of the hundreds of Chinese cultivators present was ignited, and a strong battle intent erupted from each of them. At that moment, everyone was tied together because of Yi Chen. Ding-ling-ling, at that moment an ear-piercing alarm sounded. It was like an air defense alarm. Even though everyone was in the basement, they could hear it clearly. At the next moment, countless orderly and powerful footsteps could be heard from the ground, mixed with shouts and shouts. Quick, quick, they're down there. No matter what price we have to pay, we must kill them all. Meng Zixiang looked at Yi Chen by instinct and said nervously, Mr. Yi, all the alarm systems of the Yamaguchi-gumi have been activated. They're here. Although they were all cultivators, they were unarmed. On the other hand, the members of the Yamaguchi-gumi were armed. They would definitely suffer a great loss if they fought. Yi Chen's expression remained the same. Instead, he swept his gaze across everyone's faces. He saw fearlessness, nervousness, fear, and even fear of battle. Everyone, are you willing to follow me and carve out a path of blood? He suddenly bent down and bowed to everyone. Kill! Meng Zixiang took off his shirt, revealing his skinny arms. Song Hu picked up his father's body and shouted, Kill! 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 At that moment, everyone no longer had any scruples in their hearts. There was only endless killing intent. They wanted to vent, they wanted to take revenge. They wanted everyone to know that China could not be humiliated. It's time for the massacre to begin. Yi Chen turned around slowly. He held Yamaguchi Aoki with one hand and took a step towards the exit of the basement. His bone-chilling voice was heard. At the same time, outside the basement, countless members of the Yamaguchi-gumi in black suits with weapons in their hands swarmed into the basement. Their faces were filled with killing intent and bloodthirst. Hurry, hurry, they are coming out. We must keep them here until the source of the Yagyu family arrives. A young man in a black suit stood at a high vantage point, roaring madly at the crowd below. He was the only son of Yamaguchi-gumi's seventh-generation leader, Yamaguchi Aoki Yamaguchi Yuta. He also held a high position in Yamaguchi-gumi. Behind him were 5 heavy machine guns that looked like Death Reapers. The muzzles of the guns were aimed at the exit of the basement from 5 different directions. The heavy machine gun was the M2 Browning. This gun was produced in 1921 and had a range of 7,000 meters. It could fire nearly 600 bullets per minute, which was equivalent to 10 bullets per second. The caliber of each bullet was 12.7 millimeters. It could load more than 4 times the propelling gunpowder than normal heavy machine gun bullet. This kind of range and power allowed the M2 to effectively strike any target, be it ground troops, light armored vehicles, light fortifications, or even low-altitude aircraft. That made it one of the most powerful and useful heavy machine guns on Earth. It also made it the heavy machine gun that had been in service for the longest time in history, from the 1921 until now. At that moment, an old man in a black kimono walked over quickly with a walking stick. Yuta, the 7th-generation leader, is in their hands. Don't be rash. I can't care so much. A cold gleam flashed through Yamaguchi Yuta's eyes. The Yagyu family has ordered that we can't let the Chinese people below escape this place. Moreover, Mad Southern Yi is among them. We can't let them leave alive no matter what. Otherwise, it will be a disaster for the Yamaguchi-gumi. At this point, he smirked coldly. My father is the 7th-generation leader of the Yamaguchi-gumi. He should sacrifice himself for the future of the Yamaguchi-gumi. He will understand what I did. As soon as he said that, a series of intense gunshots came from the basement, followed by screams. Meanwhile, people started to retreat from the exit of the basement. Fear was written all over everyone's face as if they had seen something terrifying. A man covered in blood rushed out of the crowd and fell to the ground with a thud. He cried, Yuta, I can't stop them. Mad Southern Yi is too powerful. He's a demon that has returned from hell. How is that possible? Yamaguchi Yuta stood up in shock. Disbelief was written all over his face. He then pulled out his gun and killed a few people who rushed out. He roared, "Don't retreat. Go in, go in. I'll kill whoever retreats." In the Yamaguchi-gumi basement, a pungent smell of blood filled the entire basement. Corpses covered in blood fell to the ground and piled up like a mountain. If one took a closer look, they would realize that most of these people had been cut in half. All the Yamaguchi-gumi members who rushed into the basement looked at the young man opposite them in fear. In their eyes, the young man did not seem to be a human, but a demon, a god of death. Corpses were everywhere. Blood, the ground was covered in blood. Hundreds of them rushed in with guns in their hands. Logically speaking, this lineup was enough to turn a tank into a sieve. However, they did not harm the young man leading them at all. The bullets that flew out would strangely fly back. In just a few minutes, a group of people died and another group of people would rush in. In the end, the entire narrow tunnel was filled with corpses. Even walking was extremely difficult. They were all ordinary people, so they had never seen such a scene before. At that moment, the fear in their hearts made them retreat while trembling. They would rather retreat and be killed by Yamaguchi Yuta than die in the hands of the young man opposite them. Meanwhile, the hundreds of Chinese cultivators behind Yi Chen were stunned. They were initially prepared to fight the Yamaguchi-gumi with their bare hands. Some of them were even prepared to sacrifice themselves. However, it was already the fifth batch since the first batch of Yamaguchi-gumi members came in. There were no less than 300 people in each batch. However, in just a few minutes, apart from the batch that kept retreating, all of them were killed by Yi Chen. From the beginning to the end, they were equivalent to spectators. They were a group of bystanders who had witnessed this bloody massacre. They were just short of buying a piece of watermelon and sitting at the side with their legs crossed to be an onlooker, as expected of the China number 1. As expected of the China number 1. One person defeating 1,000 soldiers, that's it. Meng Zixiang, who was in the crowd, stared blankly at the slightly skinny figure before him. At that moment, he was incomparably majestic, as if a peerless god of death had descended. Chapter 602. Facing Yi Chen's anger, fear flashed through Yamaguchi Aoki's eyes, but he still said stubbornly, "Let me tell you, if you dare to move, I'll kill one person until I kill them all." At the next moment, immediately, a member of the Yamaguchi group walked over and beat the old Song Jifeng to his knees. The muzzle of the gun was aimed at his head. "Old Song! Master! Master Song!" Seeing this scene, the expressions of everyone in the prison changed, and their eyes became bloodshot again. If looks could kill, Yamaguchi Aoki and the others would have died countless times over. "Mad Southern Yi, did you see that?" Yamaguchi Aoki sneered. "As long as you don't move, he won't die." Yi Chen's eyes focused. Just when he was about to say something, he heard Song Jifeng, who was kneeling on the ground, laugh out loud. "I'm a sinner. I've always said that I kneel to the heavens, kneel to the earth, and kneel to my parents. But now I'm kneeling before my enemies. These enemies have never knelt to China for the sins they committed back then. I'm a sinner of China." Song Jifeng was crying and laughing at the same time. Tears streamed down his face. "How can a sinner like me continue to live in this world?" At the next moment, he suddenly reached out and grabbed the gun in front of him. The man with the gun thought he was going to grab the gun and subconsciously pulled the trigger. He didn't expect Song Jifeng's hand to hold the trigger tightly. Bang! A gunshot was heard. Song Jifeng's body fell heavily to the ground. A bloody hole the size of a thumb appeared on his forehead, and blood kept spurting out. The entire process was extremely fast. By the time everyone reacted, they saw a corpse lying in a pool of blood. The wounds on the corpse were shocking. "Old Song! Master! Master Song!" All the Chinese people in the prison, led by Meng Zixiang, stood up. They looked extremely sorrowful, and many of them even cried on the spot. Baka. Yamaguchi Aoki was also shocked. He subconsciously slapped the person who fired the gun. Baka, who told you to shoot? I didn't shoot, He fired himself. The gun in the man's hand immediately fell to the ground. He was terrified. At that moment, Yamaguchi Aoki's heart sank completely. He did not plan to kill Song Jifeng. He merely wanted to use Song Jifeng and the rest to threaten Yi Chen. Now that Song Jifeng was dead, did that not mean, thinking of this, he hurriedly turned around to look at the surveillance screen. However, he realized that Yi Chen was nowhere to be seen. It was as if he had suddenly disappeared. It was very strange. Yamaguchi Aoki hurriedly asked the person beside him, "Where is he?" "I don't know. He was here just now, but in the blink of an eye, he disappeared." The person in charge of monitoring stuttered. "Pull up all the surveillance footage for me. We must find him, immediately. Yamaguchi Aoki resisted the urge to shoot him. However, what terrified him was that Yi Chen was nowhere to be seen even after all the surveillance cameras outside the Yamaguchi-gumi were pulled out. "Mad Southern Yi, get out here right now." Yamaguchi Aoki's expression changed. He kept shouting at the loudspeaker, "Get out here right now, or I'll kill everyone." The unknown was the scariest. Yi Chen had suddenly disappeared. Who knew if he had left or if he had used some method to sneak in? However, no matter how he shouted, he still could not get any response from Yi Chen. In the end, he was going crazy. "Mad Southern Yi, get out here. I'm begging you." "As you wish." A ghostly voice rang in his ears, causing the hair on his body to stand on end. He looked around as if he had seen a ghost. "Mad Southern Yi, where are you?" He was already like that, let alone the other hundreds of people. However, to their disappointment, there was no sign of Yi Chen in the entire basement. At the next moment, a sword gleam that was over 30 meters long appeared out of nowhere and slashed at the hundreds of members of the Yamaguchi-gumi who were holding guns. Many of them were torn into pieces by the whistling sword chi on the spot. They did not even have the time to scream. More than half of them were killed or injured with a single strike, leaving only dozens of them. From the beginning to the end, they did not even see Yi Chen. Yamaguchi Aoki's expression changed drastically as he shouted sternly, "Everyone, get ready. Kill everyone in the prison. I don't believe that he dares to play tricks on us." The remaining dozens of people raised their guns and aimed at the prison. They pulled the triggers at the same time, and bullets rained down on the prison. At that moment, the people in the prison closed their eyes subconsciously. Meng Zixiang laughed out loud. "Old song, slow down on the road to hell. I'm coming for you." Madness flashed through Yamaguchi Aoki's eyes. Die, let's die together." He knew that ever since Yi Chen broke through their surveillance and suddenly appeared here, things were no longer under his control. However, a strange scene appeared. The countless bullets suddenly stopped just as they were about to reach the steel prison, as if they had been grabbed by an invisible hand and stopped moving. The smile on Yamaguchi Aoki's face froze. His eyes were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Even the dozens of people who fired were stunned. When they came back to their senses, they fired a few more shots. The bullets that flew out also stopped when they were about to reach the steel prison. This, Meng Zixiang and the rest in the prison were stunned. They were so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell out. It was the first time they had seen such a scene in their lives. At that moment, the space in front of the prison fluctuated like ripples in a lake. A thin figure dressed in black martial arts attire slowly appeared. "Mad Southern Yi." Yamaguchi Aoki retreated and cried out in shock. When the people in the prison saw the figure that suddenly appeared in front of them, they were stunned at first. Then, they shouted in unison with incomparable enthusiasm, "Mr. Yi!" They did not expect Yi Chen to be able to come to the basement without anyone noticing under the strict lockdown and surveillance of the Yamaguchi-gumi. "Everyone!" Yi Chen turned around slowly. His guilty gaze swept across every face and every pair of eyes in the prison. "I've implicated all of you. I apologize to all of you." After saying that, he bowed to everyone heavily. Then, he walked to the side and looked at Song Jifeng's corpse. He shook his head and sighed. What a staunch old man! In the beginning, he was unwilling to use the invisibility spell. Although this spell was nothing in the cultivation world, it was too shocking in the secular world. If he were to expose it easily, it would easily cause unnecessary trouble. He did not expect it to be his hesitation. It caused Song Jifeng's death. Chapter 603. A powerhouse. A powerhouse that was not inferior to him. At that moment, such a thought flashed through Yagyu Aida's mind. He did not have the time to stop the young man from attacking. The woman next to the young man licked a mouthful of ice cream and pointed at the snowy peak opposite her. "Hey, Xiaofeng, I'm going over there to enjoy the scenery. Hurry up and don't embarrass me." With that, she actually walked towards the snowy peak. As she walked, she said, "By the way, don't kill him by accident. Just show him what you're made of." Yagyu Aida's expression changed slightly when he heard the woman speak in extremely pure Chinese. He stared at the young man in front of him. "Are you Chinese?" The young man said slowly, "Your Yagyu family has been using all sorts of methods recently to suppress the Chinese. I really want to know where a mere overseas barbarian like you got the guts from." Yagyu Aida's gaze darkened. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the young man in front of him say in all seriousness, "Don't worry, I won't kill you because your opponent is Mad Southern Yi. I'll leave you to him." Arrogant brat. No matter how calm he was, Yagyu Aida could not help but be enraged when he heard that. He attacked brazenly. A shocking battle erupted on the snowy peak. At the headquarters of the Yamaguchi Gumi. It hurts so much." Yamaguchi Yuta, whose legs were severed, screamed on the ground. Blood spurted from his severed legs, dyeing the ground red. The surviving members of the Yamaguchi Gumi watched this scene with fear on their faces. They held their breaths, not daring to breathe loudly. The scene in front of them was simply too cruel. They were scared by Yi Chen's killing. Yi Chen carried Yamaguchi Aoki in his hand and walked towards Yamaguchi Yuta step by step. His eyes were filled with coldness without any mercy. "Don't come over, don't come over." Yamaguchi Yuta tried his best to retreat, but his legs were severed. Seeing that Yi Chen was getting closer and closer, he could only stammer, I admit defeat, I admit defeat. Spare me now." He finally understood why his father, Yamaguchi Aoki, died in Yi Chen's hands. He was facing a peerless killing god. It was useless no matter how many people he had. "Mad Southern Yi, don't kill my son." As if sensing Yi Chen's intention, Yamaguchi Aoki, who was in his hand, also begged for mercy. "Don't kill your son?" A cold smirk appeared at the corner of Yi Chen's lips when he heard that. "When thousands of Chinese cultivators begged you for mercy, did you let them go? I've already said that I'll kill your entire family if you harm a single hair on a Chinese person. If you're a Chinese person, I'll wipe out your entire Yamaguchi Gumi. Only now do you regret? Too late." With that, he suddenly raised his foot and stomped on Yamaguchi Yuta's chest. "No." Yamaguchi Aoki roared and watched as Yi Chen stomped Yamaguchi Yuta into the ground. There was nothing left of him. The pain of losing his son made him want to vomit blood. "The Yagyu family has wronged me." He had only taken action to suppress the Chinese people after receiving the order from the Yagyu family. However, the Yagyu family's reinforcements had not arrived since Yi Chen killed his way into the Yamaguchi Gumi. He finally understood that he had been used. He and Yamaguchi had become the sacrificial pawn. A sacrificial pawn that provoked Yi Chen to attack. How hateful! How hateful! "Don't worry, this is only the first one. If I say I want to kill your entire family, I'll kill your entire family. If I say I want to destroy your Yamaguchi Gumi, I'll destroy your Yamaguchi-gumi. Yi-Chen lifted him up again. Right at that moment, more than 10 powerful auras rushed over from afar. Each of them emitted a dense pressure. The cultivators are here. Someone cried out in surprise, causing the members of the Yamaguchi-gumi, who were already in despair, to perk up. The Yamaguchi-gumi had been accumulating for 100 years. Although they were all ordinary people on the surface, they had secretly recruited a group of cultivators with a large amount of wealth. However, it was an absolute secret. However, following Yi-Chen's bloody massacre, the Yamaguchi-gumi's cultivators could not sit still anymore and rushed over. At the next moment, more than 10 figures approached from afar. There were blondes, blacks, Asians, and Caucasians. However, they were all older, around 50 or 60 years old. The leader was a fat old man with a naked upper body and strange tattoos on his body. He glanced at the scene indifferently, and deep shock flashed through his eyes. Clearly, he did not expect Yi-Chen to be so courageous all by himself. Fan Yongjun, save me, save me! Yamaguchi Aoki seemed to have seen his savior. After seeing Yamaguchi Aoki in Yi-Chen's hand, Fan Yongjun took a step forward and shouted coldly, "Mad Southern Yi, we'll give you a chance now. Let go of Aoki-kun and we might spare your life." "That's right." Another Caucasian man walked out and said slowly, "There are more than 10 of us here today. No matter how powerful you are, you're no match for us." Meng Zixiang and the rest could not help but jump behind Yi-Chen when they saw that. They looked at the dozen people opposite them with fear on their faces. Their heads were buzzing. 15 martial Dao masters. The 15 people in front of him were all European martial Dao Grand Masters. They did not expect the Yamaguchi-gumi to have such a trump card. Just one martial Dao master could kill thousands of people, let alone 15 of them. Many people's hearts sank as they thought to this point. However, Yi-Chen chuckled softly as if he was disdainful. "How dare you bunch of useless chickens and dogs talk to me? Impudent!" Fan Yongjun was furious. "You guys are the ones who are impudent." Yi-Chen shouted all of a sudden, "If you guys didn't come, I'd have to spend some effort to look for you guys. Now that you're all here, it saved me a lot of effort. Today, I'll send you old things to hell." As soon as he said that, he raised his hand and waved. The 5 heavy machine guns beside him slowly rose into the air and aimed at the dozen or so people opposite him. Heavy machine guns? This is my first time playing with them. I'll test its power on you guys today. As soon as he said that, Fan Yongjun and the rest were stunned at first, then they laughed out loud. "Did I hear wrongly? You're using 5 heavy machine guns against 15 martial Dao masters?" Although martial Dao masters could not block bullets head-on, they could rely on their speed and sixth sense to dodge. Unless 5 heavy machine guns were aimed at one person, it would be difficult to hurt them. After all, it was difficult for heavy machine guns to lock onto them. "Everyone, spread out and kill him!" After Fan Yongjun finished laughing, his face was covered in viciousness. Subsequently, he flashed and charged at Yi-Chen with an extremely strange movement technique. The remaining over 10 people also performed their movement techniques and charged at Yi-Chen at the same time. They were extremely fast. Even the naked eye could not pinpoint their exact location, let alone the muzzle of a gun. Yi-Chen spread out his divine consciousness and immediately captured the movements of the dozen people. The muzzles of the 5 heavy machine guns turned and aimed at Fan Yongjun at the same time. Da-da-da, then, the sound of missiles being fired rang out. Fan Yongjun, who was less than 50 meters away from Yi-Chen in the air, felt his eyelids twitch. Suddenly, he saw a dense barrage of bullets flying toward him. He suddenly shouted, "No!" Bang, bang, bang. Before he could even react, his entire body was riddled with countless bullets. Streaks of red blood splattered all over his body. Bang! A badly mutilated corpse fell heavily to the ground. At that moment, Yamaguchi Aoki was stunned. The other 14 martial Dao masters were stunned. The world was dead silent. Meng Zixiang was dumbfounded. Guns can be used like this? P.S. Chapter 3. Today's update is complete. Please recommend and monthly votes. Chapter 604. Plop. When Fan Yangjuan's body fell to the ground, Fan Yangjuan's eyes were wide open. On Fan Yangjuan's relatively intact face, his eyes were wide open and his pupils were wide open, filled with a strong sense of disbelief. Until he died. He could not figure out how Yi Chen's heavy machine gun had locked onto him. Moreover, Yi Chen's shooting speed was too fast. He could not even react in time, let alone dodge it. The entire Yamaguchi-gumi's headquarters was dead silent. Everyone looked like they had seen a ghost. Yamaguchi Aoki was trembling in fear. That was a martial Dao master. Such a powerhouse would be treated as a distinguished guest in any force. The Yamaguchi-gumi only had 15 of them after exhausting all their resources. However, in just a single exchange, one of them died in Yi Chen's hands. Moreover, he was killed by a gun. Although it was still the era of technology, martial Dao masters had long broken through the shackles of their bodies. The stronger they were, the less afraid they would be of technology. As long as martial Dao masters did not deliberately seek death, it was basically difficult for them to be targeted by technology. This also led to the martial Dao masters being killed in recent years. There were basically no incidents of martial Dao masters being killed by guns. Fan Yongjun was the first. The ones who were the most shocked were none other than the remaining 14 Yamaguchi-gumi martial Dao masters. Earlier, when they saw Yi Chen setting up 5 heavy machine guns, they even mocked Yi Chen for trying to lock onto them. Unexpectedly, Fan Yongjun, who was the fastest, was killed in an instant. Thinking to this point, the 14 martial Dao masters could not help but retreat. They retreated hundreds of meters before looking at Yi Chen in fear. A foreign old man with blonde hair and blue eyes said angrily, "Mad Southern Yi, you're the number one in China after all. It's fine that you don't dare to fight us fair and square, but you're using a heavy machine gun. Isn't that beneath your dignity?" "That's right. Mad Southern Yi, if you're a man, fight us fair and square," a white woman echoed coldly. Fan Yangjuan's death made them realize that Yi Chen's heavy machine gun could track their location. Therefore, they tried to provoke Yi Chen into giving up the heavy machine gun. They were confident that the 14 of them could kill Yi Chen if he did not use the heavy machine gun. Meng Zixiang's expression changed. He instantly sensed their intentions and hurriedly advised, "Mr. Yi, don't agree to them. They're trying to provoke you." "That's right, Mr. Yi. There's no need to talk about fairness or unfairness to them." Song Hu chimed in, afraid that Yi Chen would agree to it impulsively. "Ah!" Yi Chen suddenly laughed hysterically. He seemed to be taking a good look at the 14 people across him in disdain. "Fight you guys fairly? 14 of you against one of me. Is this what you call fair?" The golden-haired, blue-eyed elder's eyes flickered incessantly. "All right." Yi Chen waved his hand suddenly, and the 5 heavy machine guns in the air landed on the ground. "Even if I don't use heavy machine guns, killing trash like you guys is as easy as killing chickens and dogs." His voice fell. He took a step forward. "Come here and accept your death." Boom! These words completely ignited the rage in the hearts of the 14 people. Before they entered the Yamaguchi-gumi, every single one of them was a big shot. When had they ever been looked down upon like this? Even if the person who spoke was the most powerful person in China. So what? As the saying went, ants could bite an elephant to death. "Let's attack together and kill him," the Caucasian woman among the 14 yelled out loudly. In the next second, 14 earth-shattering auras exploded from the Yamaguchi-gumi's headquarters all of a sudden. It was like the prelude to a storm that was coming, a suffocating prelude. "Kill!" The 14 of them moved and turned into 14 afterimages as they charged at Yi Chen from all directions. The 14 of them unleashed their most powerful techniques at the same time. There was a loud rumble like a raging sea. That kind of power caused Meng Zixiang and the others to be overwhelmed with shock. The 14 of them attacking with all their might was enough to sink a small island. Great timing! Yi Chen scoffed and subsequently took a step out. He turned into a green afterimage with the help of the force under his feet and charged at the 14 people who were charging at him. He was going to fight 14 martial Dao masters on his own. This is Mad Southern Yi, the hero who looks down on the world. No one in China can compare to him. Meng Zixiang and the rest felt like they were in a trance. They could not stop recalling Yi Chen's battle in China. He had defeated Yuan Bupo in 3 moves on the Surge River and then fought 3 masters on the Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. That battle had completely established Yi Chen's invincibility. While everyone was in a daze, Yi Chen had already encountered the 14 martial Dao masters of the Yamaguchi-gumi in the air. A shocking battle broke out. Die! A black hunk's muscles bulged in the wind. Silver gleams exploded from his right fist all of a sudden as if it was covered in molten iron. He threw a punch at Yi Chen. He had once used this punch to blow up an armored tank. Kill! A man from Damin moved his legs quickly and charged at Yi Chen with a tornado. The tornado was like a ferocious beast with its bloody mouth wide open. It was going to devour someone. If one took a closer look, they would realize that the space around the tornado was distorted. Countless air was forcefully squeezed, eventually forming a vacuum that contained extremely pure energy. Meanwhile, the remaining dozen or so people attacked Yi Chen one after another. No matter how confident a powerhouse was in himself, he had to retreat when faced with such a situation. Ha ha ha! Mad Southern Yi, today will be the day you die. One of them laughed maniacally after attacking, as if he could already see the scene of Yi Chen being killed by them. Yi Chen did not say anything. Instead, he crossed his arms before his chest. As he did that, a strange concept appeared out of nowhere. It was as if he was hugging the entire world in his arms, like an old man doing Tai Chi in the park. However, the expressions of the dozen or so people in front of him changed drastically. It was because they suddenly felt that Yi Chen had stolen all of their attacks. That was right, stolen. It was as if Yi Chen had transformed into a black hole that was devouring their energy crazily. Boom! However, before they could react, they heard a loud bang that sounded like a mountain collapsing. It shocked everyone around them so much that they covered their ears. Even so, they still felt like their ears were ringing. Many members of the Yamaguchi-gumi who were standing nearby were killed on the spot. At the next moment, an energy wave exploded from Yi Chen's body. It was like the ripples on the lakeside. It kept spreading in all directions crazily. In the end, the ripples turned into monstrous, surging waves. Bang, 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 more than 10 figures flew backward like kites with their strings cut, leaving behind more than 10 long lines of blood in the air. Chapter 605. At that moment, the entire world fell into dead silence. Everyone widened their eyes in disbelief as they looked at the dozen or so people who were sent flying. Their faces were filled with shock. Defeated! They were all defeated. The 14 martial Dao masters had joined forces and unleashed their most powerful attack. However, they were all defeated by Yi Chen in a single move. Everything had happened too quickly. It happened in the blink of an eye. Until now, no one could clearly see what had happened, but the outcome had already been decided. How is this possible? How is this possible? Yamaguchi Aoki, who was lying on the ground, almost fainted. That was 14 martial Dao Grand Masters. They were hired by the Yamaguchi-gumi with all their wealth, but they were defeated so quickly and so miserably. The hundreds of Chinese cultivators who were initially worried about Yi Chen felt goosebumps all over their bodies after being stunned for a moment. They felt like their blood was swelling and burning. Mad Southern Yi! Mad Southern Yi! Mad Southern Yi! Everyone cheered at the same time. The shouts were uneven at first, but they gradually became uniform. In the end, it was like a thunderclap that reverberated throughout the entire Yamaguchi-gumi. It was as if the entire ground was shaking. They looked at the figure standing proudly in the air with incomparable admiration. Their eyes were burning, and their faces were flushed. That was China's mad Southern Yi. It was them, the Chinese, who could fight 14 people alone. Amidst the thunderous roars, the 14 people who were sent flying finally landed on the ground. Almost all of them vomited blood, and their faces were filled with shock. The reason being the energy that erupted from Yi Chen's body earlier was the power that they had unleashed themselves. Not only did it not hurt Yi Chen, but it rebounded to them instead. What kind of monster is this guy? Someone was shocked. At that moment, the 14 of them had a bad feeling. They began to realize that they had overestimated themselves and underestimated Yi Chen. All of you must die. Yi Chen's battle intent soared. After a long roar, he turned into an afterimage and flew toward the 14 people on the ground. His surging killing intent completely sealed the place. Not good, retreat, retreat quickly. The White Lady's heart skipped a beat. She wanted to retreat by instinct. However, Yi Chen's speed had already broken through the sound barrier. He crossed 100 meters in almost a breath's time. Die. He threw out a punch and it landed squarely on the Caucasian woman. Bang! The Caucasian woman, who was the strongest among the 14 people, did not even have time to react before she was hit in the chest. Her heart was shattered on the spot, and a terrifying force quickly spread out from her heart. In the end, her entire body shattered into countless pieces with a bang, and blood mixed with minced flesh flew everywhere. One punch, just one punch. A martial Dao Grandmaster died on the spot. Rihanna. The gazes of the other 13 people froze one after another. King Life Killer Sword. Yi Chen grabbed at the air, and the King Life Killer Sword appeared in his hand. He held the hilt of the sword and slashed at the blonde, blue-eyed man. The surging sword chi sliced through the layers of air obstacles. In the end, under the blonde, blue-eyed man's shocked gaze, the sword cut him into two. Until he died, he did not see how Yi Chen's sword chi was so fast. One strike, just one strike. Another martial Dao Grandmaster was killed. Mad Southern Yi, how dare you kill my brother? I'll fight you to the death. Let's die together. Seeing the blonde, blue-eyed man being cut into two, the other old man seemed to have been provoked and charged at Yi Chen in a frenzy. However, Yi Chen responded with a punch. Bang! The man's body exploded on the spot. Another person had died. The expressions of the people around them were already numb. Only their intense heartbeats and stopped breathing showed the shock in their hearts. Everyone stared blankly at Yi Chen's figure. They were starting to doubt their lives. Was that the martial Dao master who could wipe out an entire army? Why were they being slaughtered by Yi Chen like chickens and dogs now? Meng Zixiang could not describe his feelings at that moment. Only his lips trembled as he repeated, "Massacre, this is a massacre." The rest were stunned. They could not help but recall what Yi Chen had said earlier. Even if I don't use a heavy machine gun, killing trash like you guys is as easy as killing chickens and dogs. Massacre, it was really a massacre. The 14 martial Dao masters could not do anything to Yi Chen even when they worked together. Instead, he killed 3 of them consecutively. If this was not a massacre, what was? Yamaguchi Aoki was so scared that his eyes were glazed over. Saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth. How is this possible? How is this possible? The remaining 9 martial Dao masters were already scared out of their wits. One of them took the lead and dashed into the distance. This person is too powerful. We're no match for him. Run. The other 8 looked at each other and dashed in different directions. One of them said ruthlessly, "Mad Southern Yi, we admit that you're very powerful, but if we want to leave, you can't stop us. Just you wait. In the future, as long as we see you Chinese, we'll kill you. We won't leave a single one alive. None of the people I want to kill can escape." Yi Chen scoffed and shrouded them with his divine consciousness. Subsequently, he appeared behind a Daming man in a flash and struck with his palm. The man turned around and wanted to fight back by instinct. However, Yi Chen was even faster than him. He was smashed into meat paste with a single slap. The fourth. Yi Chen caught up to another person without hesitation. The fifth. The sixth. Streams of blood splattered into the sky, and heads fell to the ground. Broken corpses fell from the sky like rags. Meng Zixiang and the rest were shocked. To them, Yi Chen seemed to have transformed into the Grim Reaper at that moment. Anyone who was targeted by him would not be able to escape alive. Too powerful. Terrifyingly powerful. Fortunately, this person is Chinese. Otherwise, it would be a nightmare. When the last martial Dao master was killed by Yi Chen, the entire Yamaguchi-gumi headquarters seemed to have turned into hell. Wherever the naked eye passed, there were either mountains of corpses or rivers of blood. Many Chinese vomited on the spot. Song Chia's eyes were covered by Song Hu's hand, but he didn't realize that Song Chia could clearly see the scene in front of him through the gaps between his fingers. There was no fear in the 10-year-old boy's eyes. There was only shock and admiration for Yi Chen. He clenched his fists subconsciously as he looked at Yi Chen's silhouette. He secretly made up his mind to become someone like his master in the future. He would defeat an army of thousands and drink the enemy's blood with a smile.